The Nowhere Arrow of Time Paradox. A journey that never arrives. As you settle into bed and the soft glow of your screen becomes the last light of the day, your mind does what it always does at the worst possible moment. It starts to wonder. You are safe under your blanket, ready to drift into sleep, when your brain taps you on the shoulder and whispers, "Does time really move forward, or is it just a stubborn illusion?" Welcome to the Nowhere Arrow of Time Paradox, where bedtime philosophy meets cosmic confusion. If you love late-night thinking, sleep meditation, and the kind of deep thoughts that make you stare at the ceiling until 2 a.m., you are in the right place. Before we untangle this gentle mess, please subscribe, hit the like button, and ring the bell for more paradoxes, logic puzzles, and midnight musings that might keep you up just a little longer. Share your thoughts in the comments. I read everyone. Now breathe. Let us dive into this delightful dilemma. Imagine an arrow shot from a bow. It flies in a beautiful arc, moving from point A to point B. This is how we experience time, moving steadily from past to future, from breakfast to lunch to bedtime, from that awkward text you sent to the even more awkward reply. Time, like the arrow, seems to travel only one way. But here is the problem. Physics does not completely agree. At the level of fundamental laws, the equations that describe how particles move, how energy flows, how everything dances in this grand cosmic ballet, there is no preferred direction for time. The laws work just as well backward as forward. If you filmed 2 colliding billiard balls and played it in reverse, the physics would make perfect sense. No law would raise its hand and say, "Wait, that is illegal." So why, then, do we always experience time as moving forward? This is the essence of the Nowhere Arrow of Time paradox. There is no universal law that forces time to march like a soldier in one direction. The arrow of time, it seems, has no fixed target. It points nowhere. The first person to really make a philosophical mess of this was Arthur Eddington, an English astronomer and physicist.
In 1927, he coined the term arrow of time to describe the one-way experience of time's flow that we all take for granted. Eddington said, "If physics does not demand a direction, then why do we experience life like a movie that cannot be rewound?" There are a few theories, each one more bedtime-friendly than the last.
The most popular culprit is entropy. Entropy is a fancy word for disorder. A tidy bedroom has low entropy. A bedroom with clothes, books, pizza boxes, and an unidentifiable smell? High entropy. According to the second law of thermodynamics, entropy tends to increase. Things fall apart. Ice cream melts, never unmelts. Coffee cools, never uncools. Teenagers' rooms become disaster zones, never pristine again. Our experience of time aligns with this. We remember the past because it was more ordered, and we move toward the future, where things become messier. Entropy gives us a psychological arrow of time, even if physics does not. But some philosophers argue this is just a trick of perspective. Maybe we only notice disorder increasing because we are designed to notice it. Maybe time does not flow at all. Maybe all moments, past, present, and future, exist simultaneously in what some call the block universe. Imagine your life as a giant movie reel, with every frame already printed and waiting. You just happen to be experiencing frame number 14,532 right now. Sounds relaxing, right? This idea raises its own questions. If all of time already exists, what does it mean to move through it? Are we the arrow, or are we just riding along, helplessly pinned to it? Some modern physicists suggest that time itself might not be fundamental at all. It could be an emergent property, a side effect of other processes, kind of like how traffic jams exist, even though no single car intended to create one. Others believe that time is relational. It only exists because things change. No change, no time. Which makes waiting for your coffee to brew the most profound philosophical experience you can have before 8 a.m. Still others propose that time is just a label we slap onto events to keep our sanity. Without it, how would you ever explain to your boss why you missed that 9 a.m. meeting? I was temporarily displaced along the nowhere arrow might not go over well. The nowhere arrow of time paradox has even crept into popular culture. In movies like Interstellar and Arrival, time is bent, stretched, and folded like cosmic origami. In science fiction, time travel is the ultimate plot device and the ultimate headache. You see this paradox at work in everyday life too. Think about how your memories work. You remember the past, but you cannot remember the future. Why? It is not because the laws of physics forbid it. It is because your brain, a messy biological computer, records data as entropy increases. Or consider photographs. You can look at a picture of you as a child, but you cannot take a photo of your future self. Although, judging by your current taste in socks, maybe that is for the best. Even aging itself feels like a cruel joke played by the universe. Your cells reproduce, your hair changes color, or vanishes altogether. And yet, no cosmic referee ever blows the whistle to stop the clock. So, what is the solution? There is none. That is why it is a paradox, not a puzzle with an answer key. But that is what makes it beautiful. The nowhere arrow of time reminds us that we are part of something mysterious and unfinished, that every tick of the clock is both a certainty and an illusion. Maybe the arrow points nowhere because it does not need to. It just moves because we move. It exists because we exist to perceive it. So the next time you are stuck in traffic, or waiting for your pasta to boil, or wondering where the last hour went while scrolling endlessly on your phone, remember, you are riding the nowhere arrow. There is no destination. The journey is the destination. And speaking of journeys, let us end this one with a final thought. If time really has no direction, then technically being late to work is just arriving at a different point along the cosmic timeline. Good luck explaining that to your boss. Zeno'S Dichotomy Paradox, the race that never ends. There is a certain moment, often when standing in line at the coffee shop or staring at a loading screen, when the mind slips into odd territory. You ask yourself, why does it feel like I am moving, yet never quite arriving? Time creeps, progress halts, and you are stuck between now and not yet. Welcome to Zeno'S Dichotomy Paradox, the philosophical equivalent of watching paint dry on a wall that seems to extend forever. Zeno of Elea, a Greek philosopher from around 500 BC, was the original master of overthinking. While others were content to debate politics and gods, Zeno stared at movement itself and asked the question that would frustrate thinkers for centuries. How does anything actually get anywhere? The paradox goes like this. Imagine you are walking toward a wall. Before you can reach the wall, you must first cover half the distance. No problem. Then you must cover half of the remaining distance. Still fine. Then half of what is left. And again. And again. According to Zeno, you are now trapped in an infinite loop of halves. Every step forward simply creates another smaller step you must take. The wall remains forever out of reach. Congratulations! You have just signed up for the world's most exhausting treadmill. At first glance, this sounds absurd. You walk across rooms all the time. Your groceries make it home. Your dog runs to greet you. So why did Zeno believe otherwise? His point was not to argue that people literally never reach their destinations. Rather, he wanted to expose the logical contradiction in how we think about space and motion. Zeno'S Dichotomy Paradox makes a simple but devastating observation. If space can be divided into smaller and smaller pieces endlessly, then movement must involve completing an infinite number of tasks. And as anyone who has stared at a to-do list knows, finishing an infinite list feels less like progress and more like despair. Mathematically, Zeno was ahead of his time. Ancient thinkers lacked the concept of limits, which would not appear until calculus came along nearly 2,000 years later. Today, we understand that the sum of an infinite series of shrinking distances can still equal a finite distance. You can cut the distance in half forever, but the total will converge. It is like adding half a cookie, then a quarter, then an eighth, and eventually realizing you still have only one cookie. A very crumbly cookie, but a whole one nonetheless. Yet even knowing this, Zeno'S paradox retains its eerie charm, because it taps into something we all feel, the illusion of endless tasks, of journeys that seem to stall right before the finish line. Think about buffering videos, assembling flat-pack furniture, or waiting for the elevator that never seems to arrive. All examples of modern life reminding us that motion does not always mean progress. The paradox also highlights the strange relationship between perception and reality. In our minds, the infinite division feels real. The steps keep multiplying. But in physical space, the journey still ends. The runner crosses the finish line. The walker reaches the wall. It turns out that infinity plays tricks best inside our heads. Philosophers and scientists have tried to poke holes in Zeno's logic for centuries. Some argue that space and time might not be infinitely divisible. There could be a smallest possible unit, a grain of space-time, so tiny that further division becomes meaningless. This would be the cosmic equivalent of telling Zeno to stop splitting hairs. Quantum physics flirts with this idea. The Planck length, for example, is thought to be the smallest measurable unit of distance. Anything smaller may not even make sense under the laws of nature as we know them. If true, this would mean Zeno's infinite halves hit a hard stop at the smallest possible step. Still, even with modern answers, the paradox lingers because it touches something deeper. It whispers about the nature of becoming, about the uncomfortable space between where you are and where you want to be, about the way life often feels like you are forever having the distance to your goals but never quite closing the gap. Think about relationships, friendships, love, even simple conversations. Each moment brings you closer to understanding, to connection. Yet there is always one more thing to say, one more question to ask. You are always nearly there, or careers. You climb the ladder, earn the title, gain recognition. But there is another meeting, another project, another milestone. You move forward in halves, never quite done. Even personal growth feels like Zeno's paradox. You read books, travel, meditate, reflect. Yet perfection remains just out of reach. There is always more to learn, more to improve, more distance left to cover. You are perpetually between who you were and who you hope to become. Zeno's Dichotomy. Paradox sneaks into everyday life in surprising ways. Have you ever tried downloading a file only to watch the progress bar leap to 99% and then freeze? That last 1% feels eternal. Technically, you are almost finished, but psychologically it feels like you have stepped into Zeno's maze. Or take highway traffic. You creep forward, inch by inch, thinking the open road is just ahead. Yet every time you get closer, another car pulls in front of you. It feels endless. Your destination mocks you from just out of reach. Zeno also makes a sly appearance in sports. A runner sees the finish line, but feels each step taking longer. The distance shrinks, but stretches at the same time. Fans hold their breath as the ball inches toward the goal. Will it cross? It always does, but Zeno still gets his moment of suspense. So what is the solution? The answer is both satisfying and unsatisfying. Mathematically, we know the infinite steps add up to a finite distance. In real life, we finish our walks, downloads complete, meetings end, eventually, and even the longest traffic jams dissolve. The paradox is not a barrier, but a reminder. Our minds often complicate what reality solves with ease. Perhaps Zeno's greatest gift is not the puzzle itself, but the metaphor it offers. Life may feel like a series of never-ending halves. Progress may seem painfully slow, with every milestone only leading to another smaller one. But movement happens anyway. You get there. So the next time you are staring at a spinning loading icon, or pacing at baggage claim, or counting the seconds until the microwave beeps, think of Zeno. Smile at the absurdity. Remind yourself that the journey always ends, even if your mind insists otherwise. And as for the ultimate joke, if you ever want to confuse someone, tell them you are almost ready to leave the house. But first you just need to get halfway to the door, then halfway again, then halfway again. Watch their face as you explain you may never actually get there. Zeno's paradox of Achilles and the tortoise, the race where speed loses. Sometimes the universe hands you a thought so strange that it can only be described as a cosmic prank. You are sipping your morning coffee, staring out the window when the idea strikes. What if being faster does not guarantee winning the race? That is the slippery slope into Zeno's paradox of Achilles and the tortoise, a gentle yet bewildering puzzle that has twisted minds for over 2,000 years. Let us meet our unlikely competitors. First, there is Achilles, the legendary Greek hero, fastest of all mortals. Picture him as the ancient world's ultimate athlete, lean and determined, perhaps in golden sandals. Then there is the tortoise, whose athletic credentials begin and end with showing up. Zeno sets the scene. Achilles gives the tortoise a generous head start. After all, it is only fair. Logic would tell you that Achilles, being vastly quicker, would soon overtake the tortoise and win comfortably. But Zeno had other plans. Here is how the paradox unfolds. By the time Achilles reaches the spot where the tortoise started, the tortoise has moved ahead a tiny bit. When Achilles reaches that new spot, the tortoise has moved yet again, just a little farther. No matter how many times Achilles catches up to where the tortoise was, the tortoise always has a slight lead. In theory, Achilles can never pass the tortoise because there will always be another smaller distance to cover. You can almost hear Achilles shouting in frustration as he endlessly chases an opponent who is moving at the pace of a lazy breeze. At first glance, this seems ridiculous. We all know that in the real world, faster runners overtake slower ones. Races have winners. Marathons do not end with everyone staring at each other from across a series of shrinking distances. So what was Zeno thinking? Zeno was not trying to convince us that races never end. His paradox was a way of exposing the contradictions in how people think about space and time. He wanted to show that if space is infinitely divisible, then motion itself becomes an impossible task. This is the same sneaky trick he used in his Dichotomy paradox. But with Achilles and the tortoise, the idea becomes even more vivid, because we can picture the unfairness of the scenario. It feels wrong that the swiftest warrior in mythology would be defeated by the world's slowest reptile. The mathematical mystery of the paradox lies in the idea of an infinite series. The distances Achilles must cover become smaller and smaller, yet they add up to a finite total. Modern calculus, which came along centuries after Zeno, explains it neatly. The sum of infinitely many tiny distances can be a finite number. Imagine breaking a sandwich into halves, then quarters, then eighths. Eventually, you still have one sandwich. Maybe it looks like you lost a battle with a bread knife, but it is whole nonetheless. The paradox also raises questions about perception and reality. Mathematically, Achilles faces an endless series of tasks. Physically, he overtakes the tortoise with ease. The universe does not freeze in place, waiting for Achilles to tick off every tiny checkpoint. Time and motion flow naturally, indifferent to our logical puzzles. Zeno's paradox of Achilles and the tortoise continues to inspire and confuse because it touches something universal. It speaks to the experience of chasing something and feeling like you can never quite catch it. Think about modern life. Your to-do list grows longer each time you check something off. Emails multiply as you answer them. Chores never seem to end. You are Achilles, always catching up, but never completely ahead. In relationships, people often feel the same tension. You grow closer, understand each other more, yet there is always something just out of reach. A new conversation, an unexplored thought, a next step you have not taken. Even personal growth mirrors this chase. You read, learn, reflect, and develop. Yet perfection remains elusive. There is always another book to read, another skill to master, another challenge to face. You move forward, but there is always more ground ahead. The paradox sneaks into everyday frustrations too. Downloading an app that says 99% complete, but stays there for what feels like an eternity. Waiting for a package that moves through an endless series of in-transit updates. Trying to get your cat to come inside as it continually walks just beyond your grasp. Scientists and philosophers have debated how to resolve Zeno's puzzle. One solution proposes that space and time might not be infinitely divisible. There could be smallest possible units, the Planck length for space and the Planck time for duration. In that case, Achilles would eventually step over the final gap, leaving the tortoise far behind. Others suggest that the paradox simply reflects the limits of our logical language. Mathematics understands infinite sequences and shows how they can converge to a finite sum. Reality happily ignores the whole debate and lets Achilles win the race. Zeno's paradox of Achilles and the tortoise also appears in art, literature, and popular culture. Writers and filmmakers love the idea of the impossible chase. It represents the endless pursuit of love, knowledge, justice, or even a good night's sleep. The paradox even shows up in sports. Imagine a basketball player running down an opponent for a block. Every step brings him closer, but for a few glorious seconds, it feels like the distance closes painfully slowly. In business, companies chase trends and technologies, always striving to catch up with competitors. As soon as they reach one goal, the next one moves a bit farther away. It is the tortoise principle applied to quarterly reports. So, what can we take from this ancient brain teaser? Perhaps the lesson is this: the chase is inevitable, but so is the catch. Progress may feel like a series of endless tiny steps, but you will get there. The mind loves to complicate what the body resolves without hesitation. The paradox is a reminder that sometimes you must stop overthinking and just take the next step. Whether you are learning a new skill, repairing a friendship, or running an actual race, do not get trapped in the illusion of the infinite. And now, for the ultimate joke. The next time someone asks why you were late, smile and say, "I was in a foot race with a tortoise, and I had to cover half the distance, then half again, and then half again." Watch their reaction as you walk calmly past them toward the finish line. Zeno's arrow paradox. When motion stands still. There are moments when you look at the world and wonder if something is playing a trick on you. A bird hovers mid-air, a car seems frozen at a red light, or a soap bubble drifts so slowly you are unsure if it is moving at all. It is at times like these that Zeno of Elea sneaks into your thoughts with his arrow paradox, a gentle yet perplexing riddle about motion and stillness. Let us set the scene. Picture an arrow in flight. Its path is smooth, cutting through the air with effortless grace. You watch it travel from the bow to the target. Yet Zeno asks a seemingly ridiculous question. Is the arrow actually moving? According to Zeno, if you freeze time at any single instant, the arrow occupies one fixed position in space. In that precise moment, it is not moving forward or backward. It is just there. Still. So, Zeno says, if at every instant of its journey the arrow is motionless, how can the collection of these still moments ever produce motion? An arrow, made up of countless frozen snapshots, cannot logically be moving. You might be tempted to wave this off as a philosophical prank, the ancient equivalent of gotcha. After all, we see motion every day. Arrows fly, birds soar, cars speed by. Yet the paradox reveals something deeper about how we think of time and motion. Zeno's arrow paradox forces us to consider whether motion is continuous or made up of discrete steps. Does movement happen smoothly over time, or is it an illusion created by rapidly changing positions? This puzzle ties closely to how humans experience time. When you watch a movie, you see flowing action, but you are actually looking at a series of still images, flashing quickly in front of your eyes. The illusion of motion emerges only when your brain connects these separate frames. Zeno's idea is the same, but he applies it to reality itself. Is everything just a cosmic flipbook? Are we and everything around us merely posing for an endless sequence of invisible snapshots? The arrow paradox puzzled philosophers for centuries. It challenged assumptions about space, time, and motion. It was not until the development of calculus, nearly 2,000 years later, that mathematics provided an answer. Calculus introduced the concept of limits and instantaneous rates of change. In modern terms, velocity is defined as the rate of change of position over time, even when time intervals shrink to zero. An arrow can have a defined speed at every point along its path, even if each individual instant feels like a freeze frame. Think of it like this. A river may appear still at a single point, but we know it flows. The arrow, too, travels even though it seems frozen at every instant. Reality is not a collection of standalone photos. It is a continuous, flowing experience. Still, Zeno'S paradox does not lose its charm. It sneaks into daily life more often than you might realize. Ever stared at a clock, as secondhand, and felt like it paused for just a moment before moving again? Or watched an airplane inching across the sky, seemingly stuck in place? These everyday moments echo Zeno'S playful puzzle. The paradox also touches on how people think about progress. Sometimes you feel like you are standing still, even when you are moving forward. Life is full of frozen moments that make you question whether you are getting anywhere. Consider career advancement. You send applications, attend interviews, and take courses, but results seem delayed. It feels like the arrow is hanging in the air. Yet over time, the pieces connect and progress becomes visible. Or think about relationships. There are phases when conversations slow, when routines settle, when it feels like nothing new is happening. But these quiet moments are part of the larger journey, the flowing motion of connection and understanding. Personal growth works the same way. One day of learning may feel insignificant, like a single still frame. But viewed over weeks, months, or years, you realize how far you have come. Zeno'S arrow paradox even pops up in technology. Consider how digital devices work. A video on your phone is really a series of individual frames processed so rapidly that your eyes perceive smooth movement. Gamers experience something similar. Frame rates determine how fluid the action feels. At low frame rates, the motion becomes choppy, and Zeno'S arrow seems to strike again. The paradox finds a home in sports too. Photographers use high-speed cameras to freeze moments that happen too quickly for the eye to see. A sprinter's foot barely touching the ground, a soccer ball suspended before hitting the net, a diver twisting in mid-air. Each photo captures a motionless instant of something in motion. Modern physics flirts with Zeno'S question as well. At extremely tiny scales, space and time may not behave as they do at everyday scales. Some theories propose that space-time might be quantized, with minimum possible units, hinting at a cosmic frame rate. So what is the solution? Mathematics offers clarity. Motion is not the sum of motionless states. It is the result of continuous change, even when change happens over tiny, nearly invisible slices of time. The arrow moves, not in defiance of Zeno, but because the paradox teaches us to refine how we understand movement. Perhaps the real value of Zeno'S arrow paradox lies not in trapping us in confusion, but in encouraging us to question what we take for granted. It reminds us that the things we see as obvious, like motion itself, are worth deeper exploration. And now, for the ultimate joke. The next time you're running late and someone asks why you have not moved, simply reply, "According to Zeno, I have been in motionless states this entire time." Watch as they blink in confusion while you calmly stroll past. The eternal return, the universe on repeat. There are certain nights when you gaze at the stars and feel an odd sense of familiarity, as if you have seen this exact sky before. The breeze feels rehearsed, the moon looks like an old friend, and even your thoughts seem suspiciously familiar. Welcome to the mind-bending realm of the eternal return, a paradox that suggests the universe might be trapped in an endless loop, replaying itself over and over again. The idea of the eternal return stretches across philosophy, science, and myth. Its most famous champion was Friedrich Nietzsche, the 19th century philosopher who loved bold ideas and was never afraid to ask, "What if?" Nietzsche proposed that time is not a straight line stretching endlessly forward, but a circle, looping back on itself for eternity. Imagine living your life exactly as you are now. Every decision, every mistake, every victory, every breakfast choice repeating forever. You finish reading this sentence and then, after an unimaginable span of time, you do it again and again. Welcome to your cosmic rerun. The roots of this idea go back even further. Ancient Hindu and Buddhist traditions speak of cycles of creation and destruction. The Stoics of ancient Greece believed the universe would eventually collapse in fire, only to be reborn and repeat the same cosmic drama. At first glance, the eternal return feels both comforting and horrifying. On the one hand, nothing is ever truly lost. On the other hand, you may have already spilled that cup of coffee on your white shirt infinite times, and will do so again infinite times in the future. The paradox plays with the concept of infinity. If time stretches infinitely and the universe has a finite number of arrangements, then eventually every possible scenario must repeat. It is like a cosmic version of shuffling a deck of cards. Given enough time and enough shuffles, the same order will eventually come up again. Science flirts with the eternal return too. The idea connects to the theory of a cyclical universe. Some cosmologists have proposed that our universe might expand, contract, and then expand again in an endless cycle. Each big bang follows a big crunch, creating a cosmic heartbeat that never stops. However, the current evidence leans toward an ever-expanding universe, which could spell doom for the eternal return. Without contraction, there may be no reset button. Still, even in an expanding universe, the sheer vastness and randomness of possibilities mean repetition is never fully off the table. The paradox of eternal return also sneaks into everyday human experience. Think about the way routines govern your life. You wake up, brush your teeth, drink your coffee, commute, work, return home, sleep, and do it all again tomorrow. There is something strangely cyclical about existence. Consider déjà vu, that eerie feeling that you have lived a moment before. Some scientists attribute it to memory glitches, while others wonder if it hints at something deeper. The eternal return whispers that perhaps you have indeed lived it before. The paradox also touches on the philosophy of choice. Nietzsche asked, "If you knew you would live this life over and over, would you change anything? Would you embrace your actions with greater purpose, knowing they are not a one-time event, but part of a cosmic loop?" In relationships, the eternal return makes an uninvited appearance. Patterns repeat. Arguments recycle. The same jokes are told at family dinners, generation after generation. The faces change, but the script feels familiar. In technology and entertainment, repetition reigns supreme. How many times have you rewatched a favorite movie or listened to a song on repeat? How often does fashion circle back to styles from the past? The eternal return thrives in playlists and closets alike. Sports fans experience their own version of the cycle. Each season begins with fresh hope. The same rituals, the same rivalries, the same heartbreaking losses and thrilling victories unfold in their well-worn dance. Even personal growth mirrors the paradox. You set goals, work toward them, succeed or stumble, and then set new ones. The loop continues. It may not be an exact repeat, but the pattern is unmistakable. Artists and writers often explore this looping nature. Novels like James Joyce's Finnegan's Wake and movies like Groundhog Day dive headfirst into the concept of repeating events. Video games trap players in endless cycles until they master the task at hand. So what is the solution? There may not be one. That is the beauty of a paradox. It offers questions, not answers. Whether the universe truly loops or merely gives the illusion of repetition, the eternal return invites reflection. Perhaps it reminds us to live deliberately, to choose actions and words as if they will echo forever. Or perhaps it simply encourages us to laugh at the absurdity of folding the same laundry, cleaning the same dishes, or hearing the same office jokes year after year. And now, for the ultimate joke. The next time someone catches you staring blankly into space and asks what you are thinking, tell them, "I am wondering if I have stared blankly into space at this exact moment an infinite number of times before." Watch their expression as they realize they may have heard that before too. The Ship of Theseus. The puzzle of identity. There are days when you look in the mirror and wonder, am I still the same person I used to be? Your hair might be different, your style may have changed, and you have certainly swapped opinions over the years. Welcome to the mystery of the Ship of Theseus, a paradox that has been sailing through human curiosity for over 2,000 years. The story is simple, yet deeply confusing. In ancient Greece, a beautiful ship belonged to the hero Theseus. Over time, the wooden planks, sails, and ropes began to decay. To preserve the ship, each piece was replaced with a new one. Eventually, no part of the original ship remained. The question is this: was it still the same Ship of Theseus? If you think that is bad, it gets worse. Imagine someone collected every discarded plank and sail and used them to rebuild the ship exactly as it once was. Now there are two ships. One has the history of constant repair. The other has the original parts. Which one is the real Ship of Theseus? This paradox plays with our understanding of identity. Is something defined by what it is made of, by its appearance, or by the story attached to it? These are the questions that make philosophy students stare blankly out of windows for hours. The Ship of Theseus reveals a deeper tension between change and continuity. Human beings tend to believe that things stay the same even when parts change. Your childhood home may have new paint and different furniture, yet it still feels like your home. Biology offers its own version of the puzzle. Your body is constantly regenerating cells. By some estimates, nearly all your cells are replaced over the course of several years. Your skin renews, your hair grows, your bones rebuild. So, are you still you? The same puzzle shows up in technology. You upgrade your phone's parts, change the battery, and replace the screen. Is it still the same phone? Or is it a completely new device that just looks familiar? The paradox creeps into relationships too. Two people grow and change over time. New experiences, opinions, and habits emerge, yet they still consider the relationship the same. Is it? Some philosophers argue that identity lies in continuity. If something maintains a consistent function or purpose, then it remains the same despite its changing parts. The ship is Theseus's ship because it has continued to be used and recognized as such. Others believe that identity depends on material composition. The real ship would be the one reconstructed from the original parts, even if it was taken apart and rebuilt somewhere else. Then there are the rebels who suggest identity is not an either-or situation. It might exist on a spectrum. Both ships could be Theseus's ship in different ways. One carries the story, the other carries the material. The Ship of Theseus paradox shows up everywhere in daily life. Think about restoring classic cars. The engine, tires, and paint may have been swapped over the years, yet people still admire it as the same car. In sports, a team changes players, coaches, and even home stadiums, but fans still support it as the same team. The loyalty transcends the physical parts. Even companies experience this phenomenon. Employees leave, leadership shifts, products evolve, and brands reimagine themselves. Yet the company claims its legacy and history as continuous. The puzzle also touches on legal identity. A corporation can dissolve and reform under new owners, but the legal system may still consider it the same entity for contracts and taxes. Artists play with the paradox too. Sculptors, painters, and architects reuse old materials or restore artworks. Is the final result an original creation or a replica? Science fiction loves the Ship of Theseus. Stories about clones, androids, and consciousness transfer often ask the same core question: what makes you, you? The paradox even sneaks into everyday frustrations. Consider your favorite jeans. After multiple repairs and patches, are they still the same pair you fell in love with, or just an elaborate memorial? So what is the solution? There is none. That is why it is a paradox, but that does not mean it lacks value. The Ship of Theseus teaches us that identity is complex, fluid, and sometimes impossible to define. Maybe it is a reminder that change is not the enemy of continuity. Life moves forward, things evolve, yet they can still hold meaning, connection, and familiarity. Perhaps identity is like a story. It grows with every chapter, even if the characters, setting, and plot twists shift along the way. Or perhaps the paradox exists to make us smile at life's absurdity, to acknowledge that the same meal can taste different depending on who cooks it, that the same song feels new depending on your mood, and that the same coffee shop can seem both familiar and strange from day to day. And now, for the ultimate joke. The next time someone asks if you have replaced your old car, smile and say, "No, I have just been performing the world's longest Ship of Theseus experiment." Watch their reaction as they try to decide if they should nod or run. The trigger's Broom Paradox, the everyday identity riddle. There are times when you walk through your home, glance at a beloved old object, and wonder, is this really the same thing I have always had? It looks familiar, yet something feels different. The handle has been replaced, the surface repainted, the screws tightened, the fabric renewed. Welcome to the comforting and confusing world of the trigger's Broom Paradox, a gentle twist on the famous Ship of Theseus. The trigger's Broom Paradox was first introduced in British popular culture by the television series Only Fools and Horses. In the show, a character named Trigger proudly claims he has used the same broom for 20 years. He then casually mentions it has had 17 new heads and 14 new handles. Naturally, someone asks, is it still the same broom? At first, you may laugh at the absurdity. Of course, it is not the same broom, right? Or is it? That single question has launched countless debates across dinner tables, classrooms, and philosophy departments. The paradox presents a simple yet maddening scenario. If you replace every component of an object over time, does it remain the same object? Does identity stick to the parts, the whole, or simply to the idea? This broom puzzle, like its older cousin, the Ship of Theseus, touches the very heart of what people believe about persistence and change. It asks whether something can keep its identity while shedding everything that originally defined it. The trigger's Broom Paradox sneaks into everyday life in countless ways. Think about your car. The tires get replaced, the battery swapped, the paint redone. Is it still the same car you bought? Mechanics will say yes, as long as the vehicle registration number has not changed. Or consider your house. You replace windows, install a new roof, upgrade the flooring, and repaint the walls. Do you still call it your home, or do you now own a completely new building? The paradox also appears in technology. Many people have rebuilt their personal computers, swapping out motherboards, memory, hard drives, and power supplies. Is it still the same computer? Even clothing gets caught in the paradox. A beloved pair of jeans patched so many times, it barely resembles the original still holds sentimental value. You keep wearing it, believing it is the same pair that has been with you through adventures and mishaps. The philosophical angles are as varied as the examples. Some argue that identity lies in function. As long as Trigger used the broom to sweep, it remained his broom. The broom's purpose defines it more than the materials. Others believe that identity is tied to material composition. The original broom was gone the moment the first handle or head was replaced. What remains is a replica, not the genuine article. There are those who suggest a middle ground. Identity, they say, is relational and contextual. The broom remains Trigger's broom because everyone agrees it is. It exists as a shared understanding, a social contract of sorts. The Trigger's Broom Paradox mirrors human experience in surprisingly personal ways. Consider personal identity. Over the years, your cells die and regenerate. Your thoughts evolve, your beliefs shift, and your appearance changes. Are you still the same person you were 10 years ago? Most would say yes, despite the constant transformation. Relationships reflect the paradox too. Couples grow and change, yet continue to call the bond between them the same relationship. Friendships adapt over time, surviving distance, disagreements, and life changes. Sports teams are another example. Players retire, coaches change, uniforms are redesigned, stadiums are rebuilt. Yet fans remain loyal, cheering for what they consider to be the same team. Even businesses undergo this phenomenon. A company may change owners, employees, products, and branding, but customers still recognize it as the same business. The paradox appears in art restoration. When a historic painting or sculpture is repaired with new materials, is it still the original work? Museums wrestle with this dilemma constantly. Science fiction embraces the trigger's Broom paradox in stories about robots, clones, and consciousness transfer. If a human mind were moved into a new synthetic body, would that being still be the original person? The paradox extends to language and culture. Words evolve, meanings shift, traditions blend with new influences. Yet cultures retain a sense of continuity and identity. So what is the solution? There is no definitive answer. That is why it remains a paradox. The trigger's Broom invites people to reflect on how they define sameness in a world where change is constant. Perhaps it teaches that identity does not need strict boundaries. Instead, it may be more like a river, always flowing, always changing, yet always recognized by name. Maybe the paradox simply reminds us to accept imperfection, to cherish what things mean to us, even when they have been patched, repainted, or reinvented. Or maybe, just maybe, the lesson is to smile at life's quiet mysteries, that something can be old and new at the same time. That a well-used broom with 17 heads and 14 handles can sweep away not just dust, but our rigid ideas about what remains the same. And now, for the ultimate joke, the next time someone compliments your long-lasting shoes, grin and say, "They are like Trigger's broom. New soles 5 times, new laces 7 times, but still the same pair." Watch them pause to do the mental math as you walk away. The paradox of change, the strange stability of transformation. There are times when you stop in the middle of your day and realize something has shifted. Your favorite cafe has a new owner, your old neighborhood has fresh buildings, or you notice you no longer like pineapple on pizza. It sneaks up slowly until one day you say, "When did everything change?" That is the perfect entry point into the paradox of change, a gentle yet puzzling question about how things transform while staying strangely the same. The paradox of change explores a simple but mysterious idea. How can something change and still be what it was? The ancient Greek philosopher Heraclitus famously said, "No man ever steps in the same river twice." The water keeps flowing, the riverbanks shift, yet people still call it the same river. Heraclitus believed change is the only constant in life. Everything flows, nothing stays fixed. Yet humans love to give things names and believe they remain the same, despite endless transformation. The river serves as the perfect metaphor. The water you touch today will be long gone tomorrow, replaced by new currents. But the river remains the river. The paradox of change touches every corner of daily life. Consider yourself. From childhood to adulthood, your body, thoughts, and experiences evolve constantly. Your hair changes, your face matures, your opinions shift. Are you still you? Biologists tell us the cells in your body are constantly dying and being replaced. Some estimates suggest most of your cells regenerate every 7 to 10 years. Does that mean you are a completely different person? Your passport photo says no. Science says yes. Welcome to the paradox. The same mystery exists in relationships. Couples grow, face challenges, learn, and adapt. They are not the same people who met years earlier, yet they still call it the same relationship. Friendships evolve too. People move away, change careers, take up new hobbies, but the bond remains, even if everything else shifts. The paradox of change even affects places. Cities grow, buildings are demolished, streets are renamed. Tourists take photos and locals complain, but the city itself keeps its identity. Nature offers its own examples. A caterpillar becomes a butterfly. Is it the same creature or something completely new? A forest burns down and regrows. Is it still the same forest? Businesses face this paradox as well. Companies rebrand, switch products, hire new employees, and move offices. Yet the legal entity remains the same. Customers may not notice the change, or may even celebrate the new version. Art and culture embrace the paradox of change. Music styles blend, languages evolve, fashion trends return with new twists. The past influences the present, yet the present never stands still. Technology lives and breathes this paradox. Think of your smartphone. The model changes, the software updates, the apps improve, but you still call it your phone. Philosophers have long debated what defines identity through change. Some argue it is continuity of purpose. If something performs the same function, it remains the same. Others claim material composition defines identity. If the parts change, the object changes. A third group believes identity is relational. It exists in how people recognize and interact with something. A ship remains a ship because people call it one, even if every plank is replaced. The paradox of change often surprises us in small ways. You return to a childhood home, and everything feels smaller than you remembered. The house has not shrunk. You have grown. Or think about music. You revisit an old song. It sounds the same, but it feels different. Your memories and emotions have shifted, changing your experience. The paradox also appears in personal growth. Learning a new skill feels awkward at first. Over time, you master it. You look back and barely recognize the beginner version of yourself. Even traditions evolve. Holidays are celebrated in new ways over generations. Recipes get tweaked. Customs adapt to modern times. Yet, the core spirit remains. Sports teams change players, coaches, and logos. Yet fans proudly say they have supported the same team for decades. Loyalty remains even when everything else shifts. Nature itself constantly reinvents. Shorelines erode and rebuild. Mountains rise and fall over millennia. Flowers bloom, wither, and bloom again. So what is the solution? The answer, like the paradox, is elusive. The paradox of change teaches us that identity and transformation are not opposites. They exist together, constantly influencing each other. Perhaps change is not something to resist, but to embrace. It allows things to survive and adapt. A river that does not flow becomes stagnant. Maybe the lesson is to understand that people and places are living stories. They evolve, but their narrative continues. You are not who you were 5 years ago, yet your story remains yours. The paradox of change reminds us to accept uncertainty, to recognize that something can feel both familiar and new at the same time. The paradox of identity. Who are you really? Every so often, you stop and think about yourself. You remember who you were 10 years ago, 5 years ago, or even last week. You laugh at your old-fashioned choices, cringe at past decisions, and wonder how you have changed so much and yet still feel like the same person. That moment of reflection drops you straight into the paradox of identity, a gentle yet perplexing mystery about what makes you, you. The paradox of identity asks a simple yet mind-twisting question. How can something change over time and still be considered the same? It is the heart of many philosophical debates and late-night deep thoughts. Imagine a tree. It grows taller. Its branches stretch out, leaves fall and regrow, and even its bark peels away over time. Yet everyone points at it and says, "That is the same tree." What gives it its identity? The same goes for people. From birth to adulthood, you undergo countless physical and mental changes. Your skin, hair, bones, and even your personality evolve. The cells that made up your body years ago are now long gone. Still, when you look in the mirror, you confidently say, "That is me." Philosophers have puzzled over this for centuries. One popular idea is called continuity of consciousness. As long as your memories link your past and present self, you remain the same person. You remember your first day of school, your favorite birthday, and your most embarrassing moment at the office holiday party. That continuous thread of memory holds your identity together. But memory can be tricky. People forget things. Some memories fade, others get distorted, and new ones take their place. So, if your memories are constantly shifting, are you still the same person? Another theory points to the body as the anchor of identity. As long as your body persists, you are you. Yet science tells us that bodies are like rivers. They change bit by bit. Your skin sheds, your bones renew, your organs repair. At what point does a different collection of parts become a different person? The paradox of identity even sneaks into everyday life. Think about your favorite pair of shoes. They have been resoled, restitched, cleaned, and repaired countless times. Are they still the same shoes? Most would say yes. The feeling and connection remain, even if the materials have changed. Relationships reflect this too. A childhood friend moves away, adopts new hobbies, changes careers, and develops new perspectives. You might not have much in common anymore, yet you still call them your friend. Businesses also face the paradox. A company may swap out leadership, products, and branding, but will insist it is the same company it has always been. Fans remain loyal despite these changes. Sports teams evolve constantly. Players retire, coaches move on, uniforms change, and stadiums get rebuilt. Yet lifelong fans stay dedicated to what they believe is the same team. The paradox of identity also challenges the legal world. If someone undergoes a dramatic transformation in appearance or lifestyle, are they legally still the same person? Courts say yes, but the deeper philosophical debate remains. Science fiction loves to play with this paradox. Clones, androids, and mind-uploading technologies ask the same question. If your consciousness was transferred to another body, would that still be you? If a robot perfectly replicated your thoughts, memories, and behaviors, would it have your identity? The paradox pops up in art too. Restored paintings may have layers of new paint, yet they are still considered the original masterpiece. Sculptures that have been repaired are still the same works of art. Even language wrestles with this puzzle. Words shift in meaning over time, yet dictionaries still list them as the same word. So what is the solution? The answer, like the paradox itself, is elusive. Some philosophers argue that identity is not a fixed thing, but a process. You are not a static object. You are more like a flame, always changing yet consistently burning. Another idea is that identity is a social agreement. You are you because everyone around you recognizes you as you. Your friends, family, co-workers, and even your pet cat all agree. Or maybe identity is best understood as a combination of continuity and change. The core of you remains while everything else evolves. It is like your favorite song being covered by new artists. The lyrics stay the same, but the style and instruments change. The paradox of identity reminds us that change does not erase who we are. It adds depth. Each experience, mistake, triumph, and random Tuesday afternoon nap becomes part of the larger story that is you. Perhaps the paradox teaches acceptance. To welcome the idea that you can grow, improve, and transform while still holding on to the thread that ties your past, present, and future together. It is a gentle encouragement to stop worrying about staying exactly the same. Change is not a threat to your identity. It is proof of life. And now, for the ultimate joke, the next time someone says, "You are not the person I used to know," just smile and reply, "According to the paradox of identity, I am both that person and someone completely new." Congratulations, you now have twice the friend you thought you did. Watch their reaction as they try to figure out if they have been promoted or replaced. The paradox of Theseus's memories. The puzzle of remembering who you were. There comes a quiet moment when you flip through old photographs or stumble upon a long-forgotten letter. You see a younger version of yourself smiling awkwardly at the camera or scribbling dreams into a journal. You wonder, am I still the person who lived those moments? That feeling leads straight into the paradox of Theseus's memories, a gentle yet thought-provoking twist on the famous Ship of Theseus. The Ship of Theseus asks if an object remains the same when all of its parts are replaced. The paradox of Theseus's memories adds a personal layer to this ancient riddle. If your memories fade, change, or even become distorted, are you still the same person you once were? Memory defines so much of who we believe we are. It links our past to our present. It tells the story of our lives. Without memory, identity becomes slippery. Imagine Theseus standing on the deck of his fully rebuilt ship, staring into the horizon. The planks, ropes, and sails have all been replaced. But what about Theseus himself? His face has aged. His muscles have weakened. His adventures have become distant echoes. Does he still remember who he once was? Is he still the same Theseus who first set sail? Memory works in mysterious ways. It is not a perfect recording. It edits, reshapes, and even erases details. The fish you caught grows larger each time you tell the story. That embarrassing moment at a party gets fuzzier with time. Some memories stick for decades. Others vanish within days. Scientists describe memory as reconstructive. Each time you recall something, your brain rewrites it. Over time, your past becomes more like a painting touched up with new colors rather than an untouched photograph. So if your memories evolve, do you as a person evolve too? Or does the thread of identity remain intact despite the shifting sands of recollection? The paradox of Theseus's memories creeps into everyday life. You meet an old friend who remembers an event very differently than you do. You are both convinced your version is correct. Who holds the true memory? Do both of you remember different versions of reality? Technology has added new layers to this puzzle. Social media timelines, photo albums, and digital reminders preserve moments you would otherwise forget. But do those snapshots represent who you really were, or just carefully chosen highlights? Relationships feel the weight of this paradox. Long-term couples reminisce about shared experiences, yet often disagree on the details. Family members tell different versions of the same vacation. It becomes clear that memory is as much about storytelling as it is about accuracy. The paradox also appears in aging. Elderly people often lose access to certain memories. Does their identity change as memories slip away? Are they becoming someone new, or are they still fully themselves despite forgetting names, dates, and events? Memory loss from injury or illness deepens the mystery. If someone forgets large portions of their life, do they remain the same person? Is identity rooted in memory alone? Or does it also live in personality, relationships, and habits? Philosophers and scientists have offered different ideas. Some believe continuity of memory is what anchors identity. Others argue that memory is just one part of a complex system. Behavior, emotions, choices, and relationships also shape who we are. The paradox of Theseus's memories shows up in art and storytelling. Books, films, and songs explore characters who question who they are after losing or distorting their memories. Stories about amnesia, time travel, and parallel universes play with the fragility of remembering. Science fiction loves this paradox. Imagine a futuristic world where memories can be downloaded, shared, or even stolen. If your memories were removed and given to someone else, would that person become you? The paradox quietly visits you in small daily ways. You search for your keys, but cannot remember where you put them. You sing along to a song you forgot you knew. A familiar scent triggers a vivid childhood scene. Your mind reveals just how selective and surprising memory can be. So what is the solution? As with most paradoxes, there is no simple answer. The paradox of Theseus's memories invites reflection rather than resolution. It gently reminds us that memory is both a guide and a mystery. Perhaps the lesson is to accept memory's imperfections. To understand that identity is not about perfect recall, but about the ongoing journey of becoming who you are. Maybe the real magic lies in knowing that even as memories fade and change, they have shaped the person standing here today. The child who rode a bike for the first time, the teenager who stayed up too late talking with friends, the adult navigating work and relationships, all versions of you linked by threads of memory and growth. The paradox encourages us to treat ourselves with kindness, to forgive forgotten moments, to cherish the memories that remain, to keep adding chapters to our personal stories. It also reminds us to value the shared act of remembering with others. Our collective memories help keep traditions, friendships, and communities alive. And now, for the ultimate joke. The next time you forget where you parked your car, shrug and say, "I am living the paradox of Theseus's memories. I may not remember where the car is, but I'm confident I used to know. Watch the reaction as your fellow shoppers try to decide if you need help or a philosophy degree. The liar paradox, the statement that breaks itself. Some puzzles start simple. You walk into them expecting an easy answer, only to find yourself spinning in circles. The liar paradox is exactly that type of gentle but mischievous puzzle. It is a sentence that looks innocent, but pulls you into an endless loop the moment you try to figure it out. The liar paradox is one of the oldest logical mysteries. It begins with a simple sentence. This sentence is false. If the sentence is true, then what it says must hold, which means it must be false. But if it is false, then it is not the case that it is false, which must make it true. Round and round it goes. There is no clear way out. The earliest version came from the ancient Greek philosopher Epimenides. He was a Cretan who famously said, "All Cretans are liars." If he was telling the truth, then as a Cretan, he must have been lying. If he was lying, then he was telling the truth. The same logic looped back on itself. Later versions stripped away the nationality and made it even simpler. A statement about itself. This sentence is false. Philosophers, logicians, and mathematicians have been arguing about it ever since. At its core, the liar paradox reveals the dangers of self-reference. We are used to statements being either true or false. If I say, "It is raining," you can look outside and check. But when a sentence talks about itself, the neat categories of true and false begin to break down. You might not walk around quoting ancient Greek philosophers, but you encounter liar-style paradoxes more often than you think. Someone tells you, "I always lie." If they always lie, then the statement must be false, which means they must sometimes tell the truth. But if they sometimes tell the truth, they do not always lie. Your brain quietly short-circuits. It sneaks into signs and instructions too. Imagine a sign that says, "Do not read this sign." If you read it, you have disobeyed it. But if you have disobeyed it, you followed the instructions. That small twist makes the sign a cousin of the liar paradox. The paradox fascinated Bertrand Russell and other early 20th century thinkers who were trying to build a perfect, contradiction-free foundation for mathematics and logic. They quickly realized that self-reference was their enemy. If sets could include themselves, paradoxes like the liar sentence would sneak in and wreck the entire structure. Russell proposed the theory of types to prevent these infinite loops. His idea was that no sentence or set could refer to itself directly. Everything had to stay at its own level, like floors in a building with no emergency staircase connecting them. Other thinkers have tried different approaches. Some say the sentence, "This sentence is false," does not count as a meaningful statement at all. It cannot be assigned true or false, so it simply sits outside the system. It becomes a linguistic ghost, spoken but without a logical home. Then there are dialetheists. Dialetheism is a bold idea that says some statements can be both true and false at the same time. It sounds absurd at first, but it allows for paradoxical sentences to exist without destroying the entire logical system. It bends the rules of classical logic, but keeps the building standing. The liar paradox also sneaks into computer programming. Developers sometimes write programs that check themselves for errors. What happens if a program tries to check whether it itself has an error? The result is often a loop that never finishes, or a program that crashes. The machine version of the liar paradox claims yet another victim. Legal systems run into it too. Imagine two laws. Law A says, "Always obey Law B." Law B says, "Do not obey Law A." Which law do you follow? Judges and lawyers spend careers untangling contradictions that sound simple on the surface, but hide layers of paradox underneath. In philosophy, the liar paradox teaches humility. Human language, no matter how powerful, is not perfect. It contains traps. The moment a statement loops back on itself, the system of true and false can break. What is the solution? That depends on whom you ask. One school of thought says to eliminate self-referential statements from any formal system. It is like banning riddles from serious conversation. Clean, but not very exciting. Another view says to treat such sentences as neither true nor false. They occupy a third category of undefined or indeterminate statements. They exist, but cannot be evaluated. Still others prefer the dialetheist approach. They allow certain contradictions, much like you might tolerate a small leak in an otherwise sturdy ship. Despite all this, the liar paradox remains unsolved. It is a reminder that even the simplest sentence can hide complexity. It fascinates and frustrates thinkers across disciplines, and it has a playful side too. You see echoes of the liar paradox in art. Artists paint pictures of themselves painting. Writers write books about writers writing books. Filmmakers make films about making films. These works all fold back on themselves, echoing the same strange self-reference at the heart of the paradox. Science fiction loves it as well. Robots and artificial intelligences get tangled in contradictory orders. The classic example is a robot instructed, "Always follow orders, ignore this order." The robot freezes, unable to resolve the conflict. AI researchers today still have to work hard to keep their algorithms from running into contradictory instructions. Even machines can fall prey to paradox if the designers are not careful. The liar paradox teaches students and philosophers that even simple-seeming ideas can break if pushed the wrong way. It makes people think harder about how statements are constructed and what language actually does. You can even find soft versions of it in your own life. Picture your to-do list, including, write a to-do list. You completed the task the moment you wrote it down, yet it also feels like you have just started. The logic twists around itself neatly. It has also been used to explain quirky human behavior. Someone proudly declares, "I never say never." Someone else claims, "I am not the type of person who labels people," which is itself a label. The paradox exists because we love self-reference. It makes language richer and funnier, but it also reveals the limits of our logical structures. Perhaps the true purpose of the liar paradox is not to be solved, but to stretch our thinking. It exists at the boundary between clarity and chaos, challenging us to think carefully every time we speak or write. As this chapter winds its way toward a grin, imagine this. The next time a friend asks, "Are you always honest?" Pause, smile, and reply, "Everything I say is a lie, except when I say I am lying." Watch as they stare at you for a long moment before breaking into laughter, knowing they have been caught in a perfect logic loop. The Barber Paradox, the haircut that defies logic. You know you are in trouble when a simple rule turns into an impossible puzzle. Imagine walking into a quiet village thinking you will get a haircut and walk out. Instead, you walk right into one of the strangest riddles ever posed. Welcome to the Barber Paradox, a gentle yet maddening paradox about rules, categories, and the problem of self-reference. The Barber Paradox was introduced by British philosopher and mathematician Bertrand Russell in 1918. It goes like this. In a certain village, there is only one barber. The barber shaves everyone who does not shave themselves. The barber does not shave anyone who does shave themselves. The question is, who shaves the barber? At first, this seems like a quirky brain teaser. You might think, surely someone must shave the barber. But every answer leads to contradiction. If the barber shaves himself, then he falls into the category of people who shave themselves, which means the barber should not shave him. But if the barber does not shave himself, then he becomes someone who does not shave himself, so he must shave himself. The paradox forms a closed loop. It is like standing between two mirrors and watching your reflection bounce back at you forever. The Barber Paradox is what mathematicians call a self-referential paradox. It happens when a rule or statement refers to itself in a way that creates a logical contradiction. The barber's rule works fine for everyone else, but it collapses the moment you apply it to the barber. Russell created this puzzle to illustrate a much bigger problem in mathematics and logic at the time. Mathematicians were trying to build a solid foundation for set theory, which is the study of collections of things, or sets. The idea of a set seems simple. You can have the set of all red cars. You can have the set of all dogs in the park. But then people asked, what about the set of all sets that do not contain themselves? If such a set contains itself, then by definition, it should not contain itself. If it does not contain itself, then by definition, it should contain itself. It is exactly like the barber. This logical nightmare became known as Russell's paradox, and the Barber Paradox is a friendlier, hairier version of it. The problem shook the foundations of mathematics. It showed that even the simplest rules could lead to contradictions when self-reference sneaks in. You do not have to be a mathematician to stumble into Barber-like problems in everyday life. Think about a library with a rule. This library contains every book that does not mention this library. If someone writes a book titled, "The Library That Does Not Contain This Book," and donates it, does the library keep the book or not? Computer programmers also face Barber-like loops. Imagine a program designed to check all programs that do not check themselves. Should it check itself? If it does, it should not. If it does not, it should. The Barber Paradox even creeps into your to-do list. Suppose you write a to-do list at the top of your list. The task is already done by the act of writing it, but you have not yet completed it, depending on how you define done. The paradox highlights a key lesson. Self-reference is dangerous. It can turn seemingly harmless rules into logical traps. To avoid these traps, mathematicians developed ways to limit what counts as a set. They created formal systems, like Zermelo-Fraenkel set theory, that avoid self-referential collections. These systems do not allow sets to include themselves, which solves Russell's original paradox. So what happens to our poor barber? Mathematically, the answer is that the situation described in the Barber Paradox cannot exist. There is no possible arrangement of people and shaving rules that can make the barber rule work. It is an impossible scenario. The paradox also teaches us something about categories. We like to sort things into neat boxes. You might be a dog person or a cat person, a coffee drinker or a tea drinker. But the moment something belongs to a category that depends on itself, like the barber's rule, the boxes fall apart. You can spot softer versions of the Barber Paradox in real life. You might know someone who says, "I never make absolute statements." That, of course, is an absolute statement. Philosophers call these semantic paradoxes. They are not dangerous, but they are excellent reminders of the slipperiness of language. The Barber Paradox also shows up in law and bureaucracy. Suppose a rule states, every committee must oversee all committees that do not oversee themselves. Should the committee that oversees all other committees oversee itself or not? These puzzles entertain as much as they frustrate. They teach clear thinking and careful analysis. They remind us to watch out for hidden self-references that can sneak into our rules and definitions. In science fiction, writers love paradoxes like this. Imagine a robot programmed to obey only orders it does not give to itself. The moment it tries to follow that rule, its wiring fries from the contradiction. Artificial intelligence engineers deal with similar problems. They must design systems that do not allow contradictory instructions, or the AI will be unable to act at all. The Barber Paradox gently teaches that certainty has limits. Not everything can be solved by creating a new rule or writing an extra line of code. So what is the solution? The most common answer is to acknowledge that the situation described is simply impossible. The village cannot exist under those rules. There cannot be a barber who shaves all and only those who do not shave themselves. It is a description of a world that breaks the laws of logic. The broader lesson is to be careful when defining systems. If you allow self-reference without limits, contradictions will eventually appear. The paradox also encourages humility. It shows that even the brightest thinkers can be fooled by something that looks simple at first glance. Despite its unsolvable nature, the Barber Paradox remains a favorite. It pops up in puzzle books, philosophy courses, computer science discussions, and even casual conversations. It teaches that thinking about impossible things is valuable. It sharpens our understanding of how rules and categories work, and where they fail. The paradox also has a playful side. It is a safe way to explore the weird edges of logic without any real-world consequences, except maybe a slight headache from overthinking. As this hairy journey draws gently to a close, picture this. The next time you sit in a barber's chair and the barber asks, "So, do you shave yourself at home?" Lean back, smile, and reply, "I would tell you, but I am afraid it might trigger the Barber Paradox." Watch as the barber pauses, scissors mid-air, then chuckles as they realize they have just become part of the puzzle. The Sorites Paradox. When a heap becomes a headache. There are some questions that do not sound complicated until you try to answer them. You think you know what a heap of sand looks like. You have seen plenty of sand piles at the beach, in gardens, or at construction sites. Then someone asks you, at exactly what point does a few grains of sand become a heap? Suddenly, you realize you have no idea. Welcome to the Sorites Paradox, a gentle but deeply confusing puzzle about categories, language, and the blurry edges of meaning. The word Sorites comes from the Greek word for heap. The paradox has been around since the time of ancient philosophers, possibly originating with Eubulides of Miletus around 350 BC. His version went like this: if you have a heap of sand and remove a single grain, it is still a heap. If you keep removing grains, eventually you are left with just one grain. Is that still a heap? Clearly not. So when exactly did the heap stop being a heap? You can flip the puzzle around. Start with one grain of sand, not a heap. Add one more grain, still not a heap. Add another and another. At some point, you will agree it is a heap. But which grain transformed it? Was it grain number 10? Grain number 1000? Grain number 5739? Nobody can give a clear answer. This gentle but frustrating paradox shows how some concepts do not have sharp boundaries. Philosophers call these vague predicates. Words like heap, bald, tall, rich, old, or even clean fall into this category. We know what they mean in a general sense, but we cannot draw a neat line between when they apply and when they do not. You run into Sorites-style problems all the time without realizing it. When does a person become bald? Is it at the loss of 50 hairs? 500? 5,000? There is no official baldness threshold. The same happens with height. When does someone become tall? 1 extra millimeter does not suddenly transform someone from average to tall. Think about wealth. If someone has $1, they are not rich. Add one more dollar at a time. When does that person officially become rich? There is no magical cutoff. The Sorites Paradox also sneaks into personal experiences. You do not notice yourself aging day to day. But then you stumble upon an old photo and wonder when that subtle shift happened. Was it last week? Last year? You cannot pinpoint the moment. Fashion embraces the paradox too. When does a style become outdated? A single change in fabric or cut might not matter, but one day everyone quietly agrees the trend is over. The Sorites Paradox reveals an important truth. Language is often fuzzy. We love to sort things into categories, but many real-world categories resist tidy boundaries. Philosophers and logicians have been debating the Sorites Paradox for centuries. One approach tries to impose strict boundaries, but that always feels arbitrary. Saying exactly 1,000 grains of sand makes a heap, while 9,999 does not, feels like an odd and meaningless distinction. Another approach embraces the fuzziness. It accepts that some concepts work just fine without rigid definitions. A heap is whatever people agree looks like a heap. This idea is called supervaluationism. It allows for borderline cases where it is neither definitely true nor definitely false to call something a heap. It keeps communication flexible without breaking logic. The Sorites Paradox even shows up in legal and ethical debates. Laws often use vague language. Terms like reasonable force, excessive speed, or public decency invite endless argument because they lack clear edges. Technology faces Sorites-style puzzles too. When does a computer program become outdated? One missing update does not matter, but over time the program slowly becomes incompatible with everything around it. Artificial intelligence also wrestles with this problem. Teaching machines to recognize vague categories like clean room or healthy plant reveals just how much human judgment relies on soft boundaries. In marketing, companies often tiptoe around the paradox. They might say a product is new and improved. How many small tweaks qualify as new? Changing a label might not convince customers, but altering the formula, the packaging, and the branding together suddenly does. The Sorites Paradox even sneaks into sports. When does a losing streak officially become a slump? 1 loss, 3, 5? There is no official rulebook answer. Philosophers have proposed various solutions. One is called fuzzy logic. Fuzzy logic lets you assign degrees of truth. A person can be mostly tall, or a room can be somewhat clean. It avoids sharp boundaries and instead works with sliding scales. Another approach says that the Sorites Paradox teaches us something about the limits of language itself. Words were never meant to be mathematically precise. They are tools we use to get by, and sometimes a little vagueness helps more than it hurts. The Sorites Paradox invites us to be comfortable with uncertainty. Life rarely offers clear lines between one state and another. Relationships change gradually. Careers shift over time. Personal growth happens so slowly, you hardly notice it until you look back. It reminds us to be patient with ourselves and others. The paradox teaches that change is often a series of tiny steps, rather than one dramatic leap. The paradox also encourages us to appreciate context. What looks like a heap of sand to a child might not seem like a heap to an adult. What seems tall to a 6-year-old might seem average to a basketball player. There is quiet wisdom in accepting that some things are meant to be a little blurry. Science fiction writers love playing with this idea. They imagine worlds where machines or aliens cannot understand human fuzziness. An alien asks, "At what exact point did you become friends?" The human shrugs and says, "I guess we just are." The alien short-circuits trying to calculate the answer. The Sorites Paradox also shows up in casual conversations. You clean your desk. Is it clean after moving 1 paper? 2 papers? 10? When exactly did it become clean? Most of us stop caring at the point where it simply looks clean enough. So what is the solution? The answer, as with most paradoxes, is that there may not be a perfect solution. The Sorites Paradox exists not to be solved, but to stretch your thinking about categories, change, and communication. The broader lesson of the Sorites Paradox is to appreciate the shades of gray. Precision is valuable in some areas of life, like science or engineering. But in day-to-day life, a little vagueness keeps things flowing smoothly. The paradox also reminds us to enjoy the journey. It teaches that change often happens slowly and invisibly. You do not notice your plant growing taller until one day it touches the window. You do not see yourself learning new skills until suddenly the task feels easy. Sometimes it is better to accept the blur and move on. Life offers very few moments where you can point and say, "That was the exact grain of sand that turned it into a heap." As this exploration of fuzzy edges and shifting definitions draws to a gentle close, imagine this. The next time someone proudly claims they have finally cleaned their desk, glance over at the towering pile of books, notebooks, and coffee mugs, and reply with a grin, "At what precise moment did it become clean? I am only asking for philosophy." Watch as they pause, chuckle, and realize they have just been caught in the timeless web of the Sorites Paradox. The paradox of the stone: can ultimate power be outwitted by a rock? Sometimes the simplest questions create the deepest confusion. You are sitting comfortably, minding your own business, when someone casually asks, "Can an all-powerful being create a stone so heavy that even it cannot lift it?" You freeze. You sip your coffee and stare into space, realizing you have just stepped into the gentle but mind-twisting world of the paradox of the stone. The paradox of the stone is a classic puzzle about power, limits, and logic. It first appeared in philosophical discussions in the Middle Ages and has been debated ever since. At first glance, it seems simple enough. Either an all-powerful being can create the stone, or it cannot. Either way, something strange happens. If the being can create a stone it cannot lift, then there is something it cannot do: lift the stone. If the being cannot create such a stone, then there is something it cannot do: create the stone. Either way, the concept of being all-powerful seems to collapse. This puzzle touches on the age-old idea of omnipotence, the quality of having unlimited power. The paradox of the stone questions whether the idea of unlimited power even makes sense. Philosophers have debated it for centuries, and no one has found an answer that satisfies everyone. The puzzle remains a gentle but persistent thorn in the side of anyone who tries to define absolute power. You may not spend your days debating omnipotence, but you experience lighter versions of the paradox in everyday life. Someone says, "Be spontaneous right now." The very act of trying to plan spontaneity defeats the point. Or someone hands you a card that says, "Ignore this card." If you ignore it, you are following its instruction. If you follow it, you are not ignoring it. The paradox of the stone also sneaks into computer programming. Developers sometimes write programs that are supposed to check themselves for errors. What happens if the program tries to check whether it itself is working? The result is often an endless loop that crashes the system. Security experts deal with a similar problem. They are asked to create systems that are perfectly secure but also easy to use. The more secure a system becomes, the harder it is for anyone, including legitimate users, to access it. Perfect security and perfect accessibility pull in opposite directions. The paradox of the stone invites you to think about the limits of language and thought. Just because a sentence is grammatically correct does not mean it describes something that can exist. Some philosophers argue that omnipotence should be defined more carefully. An all-powerful being can do anything that is logically possible, but creating a stone it cannot lift is not logically possible. It is a self-contradictory task, like drawing a square circle or making 2 + 2 = 5. This approach does not weaken the idea of power. Instead, it refines it. It suggests that true power does not include the ability to perform nonsense. The paradox of the stone also touches on human behavior. People often set goals that contradict themselves. They want complete freedom and total security. They want to know everything and still be surprised. Life rarely offers both at once. The paradox gently encourages us to spot when we are chasing impossible combinations. It teaches us to be aware of how words and ideas can twist into impossible shapes when pushed too far. Science fiction writers love exploring the paradox of the stone. Stories about omnipotent beings, supercomputers, or cosmic forces often include scenes where the characters are asked to solve impossible problems. In everyday life, you encounter softer versions of the paradox when trying to please everyone at once. You host a dinner party and try to satisfy every guest's food preference. No matter what you do, someone always says, "I wish there was also." The task becomes impossible. Philosophers and theologians have proposed several ways to resolve the paradox. One school of thought says that omnipotence should only apply to tasks that are logically coherent. An all-powerful being can create mountains, stars, and universes, but it cannot create contradictions. That is not a limit of power, but a limit of what concepts can exist. Another approach says the paradox reveals a problem with how humans use language. We combine words into grammatically correct sentences without checking whether the combination describes something real. Create a stone so heavy that it cannot be lifted by an all-powerful being may sound valid, but it contains a contradiction at its core. The paradox also invites us to reflect on the nature of power itself. Sometimes the wisest use of power is knowing when not to act. The ability to choose restraint over force is a kind of power too. In relationships, work, and personal growth, the same rule applies. People often demand the impossible from themselves. They want to work harder and relax more at the same time. The paradox of the stone reminds us to recognize when we are chasing goals that cannot coexist. So what is the solution? As with most paradoxes, the answer depends on how you define the terms. The paradox of the stone exists not to be solved once and for all, but to teach a lesson about the boundaries of possibility. Perhaps the lesson is to understand that language has limits. Not every combination of words leads to a meaningful question. Sometimes what sounds deep is really just tangled logic. The paradox also teaches us to accept that boundaries can be helpful. Trying to be everything to everyone often leads to frustration.
Recognizing what can and cannot be done is a form of wisdom. There is also beauty in embracing the idea that some questions exist simply to stretch our minds. The paradox of the stone may never have a perfect answer, but that does not stop people from thinking about it, debating it, and smiling at its trickiness. Science fiction and fantasy, have fun with it. Imagine a superhero who can lift anything,
but is then handed a magical object that claims it cannot be lifted. The hero stands frozen, unsure what to do. The paradox of the stone also sneaks into daily life. You clean your house thoroughly and then say, "Now it is so clean that nothing can be removed to make it cleaner." 5 minutes later, you notice a single dust bunny mocking you from under the couch. Perfection was an illusion. The paradox teaches us that life often resists perfect answers. It invites us to explore, to imagine, and to accept a little mystery in the process. As this stone-heavy journey rolls gently to its conclusion, imagine this. The next time your boss hands you an impossible assignment and says, "I need this finished yesterday," smile and say, "Ah, the classic paradox of the stone. I would love to help, but I cannot lift what never existed." Watch as your boss pauses, grins, and gives you a real deadline instead. The Omnipotence Paradox. When unlimited power has unseen limits. You know you are in philosophical trouble when you start arguing with yourself about what you can or cannot do. It happens to all of us. You sit down with a long to-do list and think, "I can do anything." 2 minutes later, you realize you cannot even find the pen. Welcome to the Omnipotence Paradox, a gentle yet bewildering puzzle that asks, what does it mean to have unlimited power? The Omnipotence Paradox poses a simple but troublesome question. Can an all-powerful being create a task that it cannot accomplish? The most famous version asks, can an omnipotent being create a stone so heavy that it cannot lift it? If it can, then there is something it cannot do, lift the stone. If it cannot create the stone, then there is something it cannot do, create the stone. Either way, absolute power seems to have hit a brick wall. Philosophers have been circling this paradox for centuries. Some credit its early form to medieval theologians. The puzzle lies at the heart of discussions about the nature of omnipotence, or limitless power. The paradox challenges our ideas of possibility and logic. At first glance, omnipotence should mean the ability to do anything. But the moment you combine power with self-contradictory tasks, you discover the limits of what anything can mean. You experience milder versions of this paradox in daily life. You are asked to be spontaneous right now. The act of planning spontaneity makes the request impossible. Or someone hands you a sign that reads, "Do not read this sign. If you obey, you disobey. If you disobey, you obey." The Omnipotence Paradox even sneaks into computer programming. Programmers sometimes write algorithms that must monitor and update themselves. What happens if the program needs to check whether it itself is working? It ends up in an endless loop or crashes entirely. Security experts also face this puzzle. They are often asked to design systems that are completely secure but easy to use. The more secure you make something, the harder it is for even legitimate users to access it. Total security and total accessibility pull in opposite directions. The Omnipotence Paradox forces you to rethink what power really means. Is omnipotence the ability to do literally anything, or is it the ability to do anything that makes sense? Philosophers have divided into camps. One group believes that omnipotence does not include the ability to perform self-contradictory tasks. An omnipotent being cannot create a square circle or make 2 + 2 = 5. This does not limit the being's power. Instead, it acknowledges that nonsense cannot be turned into reality, no matter how powerful you are. Another group argues that the paradox exposes the flaws in our understanding of language. Just because we can form a sentence does not mean the sentence describes something real. An all-powerful being creating a rocket cannot lift sounds grammatically fine, but it contains a contradiction at its core. A third approach says omnipotence must be redefined to include only logically possible actions. This view keeps omnipotence intact without forcing it to perform impossible feats. The Omnipotence Paradox touches everyday human thinking too. People set contradictory expectations for themselves. They want total freedom and complete security. They want to know everything and still be surprised. The paradox encourages you to notice when you are chasing impossible combinations. It invites you to recognize that the frustration you feel may come from trying to satisfy two goals that cannot coexist. Science fiction writers have had a field day with this paradox. Stories about supercomputers, time travelers, or all-powerful aliens often include moments when the characters are asked to perform contradictory tasks. In one classic example, a robot is instructed, "Always follow orders, disregard this order." The machine locks up, unable to resolve the contradiction. The paradox even sneaks into real life at work. A boss might ask, "Deliver this project by yesterday." You smile, knowing you have just been handed your very own version of the Omnipotence Paradox. Philosophers and theologians have wrestled with this puzzle for centuries. The famous medieval philosopher Thomas Aquinas suggested that God's omnipotence does not include the power to do what is logically impossible. He argued that contradictions are not tasks, but empty phrases. No power, no matter how divine, could make a married bachelor or a triangle with four sides. This solution, called restricted omnipotence, has become a common way to resolve the paradox. It says that omnipotence includes all possible things, but does not extend to logical absurdities. Some modern thinkers go further. They argue that self-contradictory tasks are not tasks at all. They are linguistic tricks that fool the mind into thinking a real action is being proposed when it is not. The Omnipotence Paradox teaches an important lesson about words. Just because we can say something does not mean it refers to anything real. Create a rock too heavy to lift is like asking someone to paint an invisible rainbow or build a ladder that reaches the end of infinity. In relationships and personal goals, the paradox appears in softer forms. You may want to achieve absolute career success and also have unlimited free time. You cannot have both. You may want to save money, but also buy every new gadget. Once again, the paradox taps you on the shoulder and smiles knowingly. So what is the solution? The paradox has no single answer that satisfies everyone. That is why it remains a favorite in philosophy classrooms and late-night debates. The most popular resolution is to accept that omnipotence applies only to tasks that are logically coherent. An omnipotent being can do anything that makes sense, but it cannot perform self-contradictory actions because those actions do not actually exist. The broader lesson of the Omnipotence Paradox is to embrace the limits of language and logic. Sometimes what seems like a question is really a puzzle with no answer. The paradox invites us to appreciate the beauty of mystery. It teaches that power is not about doing the impossible, but about understanding what is possible and acting wisely within that space. There is also comfort in knowing that even the greatest thinkers have been stumped by such questions. It reminds us that uncertainty is part of the human experience. Science fiction and fantasy continue to play with the paradox. Superheroes who are invincible must still deal with the emotional weight of decisions. Time travelers can go anywhere but struggle to avoid paradoxes of their own making. You encounter soft versions of the paradox in daily life. A friend says, "I never make absolute statements." You grin, knowing they have just made one. The Omnipotence Paradox teaches us to be flexible thinkers. It reminds us that even the most powerful ideas have boundaries, and that knowing those boundaries is a form of wisdom. As this journey through the winding halls of absolute power drifts toward a laugh, imagine this. The next time someone says, "You can do anything you set your mind to," smile and reply, "Anything, yes." but I still have not figured out how to make my phone battery last all day. Watch as they chuckle and agree that even omnipotence has its limits. The paradox of tolerance, when tolerance risks tolerating intolerance. Some puzzles sneak up quietly. You do not see them coming until you are already tangled in them. The paradox of tolerance is just that type of gentle but tricky problem. It starts with a well-meaning idea. We should tolerate everyone, and then pulls the rug out from under your feet. The paradox of tolerance was first introduced by Austrian philosopher Karl Popper in 1945. In his book, The Open Society and Its Enemies, Popper warned about a problem that societies might face when trying to be tolerant. The puzzle goes like this. If a society values tolerance, should it also tolerate those who are openly intolerant? If it does, those intolerant people may use that very tolerance to spread their ideas, grow in influence, and eventually destroy the tolerant society itself. It is a classic self-defeating situation. Tolerance left unchecked could lead to its own downfall. You do not have to be a philosopher to see smaller versions of this paradox in daily life. Imagine you host a party and welcome all your friends. Then one guest shows up and loudly insults everyone. If you tolerate that behavior, the rest of the guests might leave. If you kick out the rude guest, are you being intolerant? Either choice feels awkward. The paradox of tolerance challenges us to draw boundaries. It forces us to consider when protecting a principle requires limiting how far that principle can stretch. Popper's answer was surprisingly practical. He argued that a tolerant society should tolerate almost all opinions and beliefs, but not those that actively promote intolerance, violence, or the destruction of others' rights. The paradox often appears in discussions about free speech. Should people be allowed to say anything they want, even if their words encourage hatred or discrimination? Where do we draw the line between protecting freedom and preventing harm? This is not just a theoretical question. History offers chilling examples of what happens when intolerance goes unchecked. Extremist groups have risen to power in democratic societies by using the freedoms offered to them to later strip away the freedoms of others. The paradox of tolerance also shows up in classrooms. Teachers encourage open debate, but must step in if a student begins bullying others or promoting harmful ideas. It creeps into workplaces too. A company might pride itself on having an open culture where everyone can voice their opinions. But what happens when one employee's opinion includes belittling or harassing coworkers? At some point, leadership must act. The same dilemma plays out on social media. Platforms want to allow open discussion, but they also have a responsibility to remove hateful content that creates toxic environments. The moment they remove a post, some users accuse them of censorship. The paradox of tolerance is a balancing act. It teaches us that rights and responsibilities must coexist. Freedom does not mean license to destroy others' freedoms. Philosophers have debated how best to manage this paradox. Some argue for clear laws and rules that prohibit hate speech and incitement to violence. Others believe education and public dialogue are more effective tools than punishment. The paradox also highlights the danger of moral absolutism. If you insist on tolerating everything without exception, you risk undermining the very values you want to protect. The lesson is subtle but powerful. Being tolerant does not mean tolerating everything. It means setting thoughtful limits to prevent the destruction of tolerance itself. The paradox of tolerance even touches personal relationships. You may know someone who constantly crosses boundaries. You want to be patient and understanding, but at some point you realize that tolerating their behavior only encourages it. In psychology, this is called enabling. When tolerance turns into enabling, it can cause more harm than good. Science fiction writers love exploring this paradox. They imagine futuristic societies where governments wrestle with how to allow total freedom while preventing chaos. The tension between liberty and order makes for fascinating storytelling. In some stories, alien civilizations misunderstand human tolerance. They assume humans will accept anything, only to discover that even the most open-minded species have limits. The paradox even sneaks into comedy. A character says, "I am so tolerant that I refuse to tolerate intolerance." The audience laughs because they recognize the twist. So what is the solution? Popper suggested that we must be prepared to defend tolerance by refusing to tolerate the most extreme forms of intolerance. This does not mean silencing all unpopular views. It means stopping those who promote violence, hatred, or the suppression of others. The paradox of tolerance invites us to think carefully about where we draw lines. It asks us to be alert and aware, recognizing that protecting freedom sometimes means standing up against those who would abuse it. It also reminds us that there is no perfect formula. Every situation requires judgment and thoughtful decision-making. The broader lesson of the paradox is that values must be actively defended. They cannot survive on goodwill alone. Tolerance must have boundaries, or it becomes meaningless. The paradox of tolerance encourages us to have conversations, listen to others, and respectfully challenge harmful ideas. It promotes the idea of civic courage, the willingness to stand up for what is right, even when it is uncomfortable. In philosophy, the paradox teaches us that life is full of complex balances. It reminds us that absolutes rarely work in a messy, unpredictable world. You encounter soft versions of this paradox almost everywhere. Think of a local club or group that welcomes everyone but eventually has to set rules to prevent disruptive behavior. Or consider an online community where moderators must balance open discussion with keeping the space safe and respectful. The paradox even appears in friendships. Someone insists they should always speak their mind, no matter how hurtful. You realize that respecting their honesty does not mean you have to accept their rudeness. The paradox of tolerance teaches us that wisdom lies in knowing when to say enough. It shows that sometimes the kindest thing you can do is set firm boundaries. As this thoughtful journey through the twisting paths of tolerance comes to a close, imagine this. The next time someone tells you, "You must tolerate my opinion, even if I say no one else should be allowed to speak," smile and reply, "That is an impressive attempt at irony, but I think I will pass." Watch as they pause, grin, and realize they have just wandered straight into the paradox of tolerance. The Raven Paradox. When green socks prove something about blackbirds. Not every paradox shouts. Some stroll quietly into the room, give you a gentle tap on the shoulder, and then calmly mess with your entire sense of logic. The Raven Paradox is that kind of soft-spoken troublemaker. It starts with something that sounds perfectly harmless and then spins you around in circles. The Raven Paradox was introduced by German philosopher Karl Hempel in the 1940s. It asks a simple question: how do we confirm that a general statement is true? The classic example is the statement, "All ravens are black." At first, the rule seems easy. Every time you see a black raven, you gather more evidence that the statement holds. The more black ravens you spot, the more confidence you have. Then comes the twist. According to logic, the statement, "All ravens are black," is logically equivalent to, if something is not black, then it is not a raven. That means every time you see a non-black object that is not a raven, a red apple, a blue car, a green pair of socks, you have technically found more evidence that all ravens are black. That is the Raven Paradox. How can seeing green socks possibly tell you anything about ravens? At first you might shake your head and think, that cannot be right. But under formal logic, it holds. If every non-black object you encounter is not a raven, then it supports the statement that all ravens are black. The paradox highlights the strange gap between logic and common sense. It gently reminds us that the rules of reasoning do not always match the way humans intuitively think about evidence. You experience softer versions of the Raven Paradox in daily life. Imagine someone says, "All the cookies in the jar are chocolate chip." You check and find only chocolate chip cookies. You feel satisfied. But technically, looking at a banana or a cup of tea also supports the statement, since neither one is a non-chocolate chip cookie. The paradox shows up in detective stories too. A detective hunting for a suspect may eliminate thousands of innocent people to confirm who the culprit is not. Each elimination offers indirect confirmation of the final answer. In science, researchers face a version of the Raven Paradox when designing experiments. Scientists know they must be careful about what counts as relevant evidence. Observing unrelated data does not strengthen a theory, even if logic says it does. Philosophers and logicians have debated the Raven paradox for decades. Some argue that while every non-black non-raven technically supports the claim, not all evidence carries the same weight. 1,000 green socks will not convince anyone about ravens. Others suggest that the paradox teaches us to distinguish between relevant and irrelevant evidence. Direct evidence, like observing black ravens, matters more than indirect confirmation. The paradox also reveals something about human thinking. We are pattern seekers. We tend to give more value to observations that fit our expectations directly rather than indirectly. The Raven paradox even sneaks into marketing. A company may say, "All our products are eco-friendly." Every time you see one of their products with an eco-friendly label, you gain confidence. But logically, every time you see an unrelated product from another company that is not eco-friendly, you also gather indirect confirmation. The paradox also shows up in daily routines. Imagine your friend proudly claims, "I never eat after 8 p.m. You visit them at 7 p.m. and see them eating. It matches the claim. But seeing them not eating at 10 a.m. also technically supports the claim, even though it feels irrelevant. Some philosophers believe the Raven paradox shows the weakness of confirmation as a method of proving universal statements. It suggests that no number of confirming instances can fully prove a general rule. The paradox invites us to rethink how we define evidence. It encourages scientists and thinkers to weigh observations based on their relevance and usefulness. The paradox also touches on probability. Seeing a black raven provides stronger confirmation than seeing a yellow pencil. Both technically count, but not equally. The Raven paradox teaches an important lesson. Evidence does not always add up in neat piles. Sometimes logic and human judgment pull in opposite directions. It also reminds us to stay humble. We like to believe that evidence and logic always guide us smoothly, but reality is often messier. Science fiction writers have had fun with the Raven paradox. They imagine worlds where robots or aliens misunderstand human reasoning. A robot tasked with proving that all birds fly dutifully scans furniture, food, and kitchen utensils for non-flying non-birds. The paradox even sneaks into casual conversations. Someone says, "Everyone I know loves pizza." You meet a person who hates pizza. The statement crumbles. But meeting people who have never tried pizza does not disprove it. That tiny difference illustrates the puzzle at the heart of the Raven paradox. So what is the solution? There is no final answer. The Raven paradox remains unsolved because it exposes a deeper tension between formal logic and human reasoning. Some suggest refining our ideas of confirmation. We should give greater weight to direct observations and treat indirect observations as background information. Others propose that the paradox is simply a reminder that logic and life are not always in harmony. It gently warns us not to trust pure logic without considering context. The paradox encourages us to be thoughtful about what we accept as proof. It challenges us to think critically and not jump to conclusions based on weak or irrelevant evidence. It also teaches us to embrace uncertainty. Absolute certainty is rare. Life is filled with approximations and best guesses. In philosophy, the Raven paradox is a friendly troublemaker. It exists not to frustrate us, but to keep our thinking sharp. The paradox even touches human behavior. You might buy a new phone and immediately start noticing the same model everywhere. It feels like the universe is sending you signs, but it is just your brain noticing patterns it previously ignored. The Raven paradox reminds us that we are wired to seek confirmation. We want our beliefs to be supported, and sometimes we see support where none really exists. You encounter soft versions of the paradox all the time. A friend claims, "I never miss a workout." Seeing them at the gym supports the claim. Seeing them at a bookstore at noon technically does too, even though you would never consider it relevant. The Raven paradox gently encourages us to be careful thinkers. It invites us to reflect on how we gather and interpret evidence. As this curious journey through black birds and green socks comes to a close, imagine this. The next time your friend proudly shows off a wild pair of lime green socks, smile and say, "Excellent, another solid piece of evidence that all ravens are black." Watch as they pause, blink, and then burst out laughing as they realize they have just become part of the Raven Paradox. Russell's Paradox. When a simple list destroys an entire system. Some puzzles announce themselves with flashing lights. Others quietly stroll in and rearrange everything you thought you understood. Russell's Paradox belongs to the second group. It starts with a simple question about lists and ends up shaking the very foundation of mathematics and logic. The paradox was introduced by British philosopher and mathematician Bertrand Russell in 1901. At the time, mathematicians were happily building a grand system of set theory. A set is just a collection of things. You can have the set of all books in your house, the set of all red cars, or the set of all your favorite songs. Everything seemed to be going smoothly until Russell asked a strange little question. What about the set of all sets that do not contain themselves? At first you may think, sure, why not? But then your brain starts to wobble. If the set of all sets that do not contain themselves contains itself, then it must not contain itself. But if it does not contain itself, then by definition, it must contain itself. It loops endlessly in a contradiction. This is Russell's paradox. A simple idea, listing sets, becomes impossible when the list refers to itself. You encounter a softer version of this paradox in daily life with the famous Barber Paradox, also created by Russell. In a village, the barber shaves everyone who does not shave themselves. The question is, who shaves the barber? If the barber shaves himself, then he should not. If he does not shave himself, then he should. Russell's paradox exposes the dangers of self-reference. It shows that when something tries to define itself, trouble is not far behind. You see playful examples of this paradox all around. Imagine writing a list titled, "Things Not on This List." If you include any item, it violates the title. If you include nothing, then the list itself becomes an item not on the list. It sneaks into everyday conversations too. Someone says, "I always lie." If they are lying, then they must sometimes tell the truth. If they are telling the truth, then they must be lying. The loop spins on. Computer programmers face a version of Russell's paradox when they write code that must check itself for errors. A program cannot reliably determine whether it itself has errors without running into logical trouble. Cybersecurity experts encounter this problem too. Imagine trying to create an antivirus program that also scans itself for viruses. You risk setting up a loop that never ends. Russell's paradox caused a crisis in mathematics. The system of set theory that mathematicians had been building collapsed under the weight of this tiny but powerful contradiction. Mathematicians scrambled for solutions. One response was to introduce type theory. In type theory, sets are divided into levels. A set at one level cannot include sets at its own level. This prevents the set of all sets from including itself. Another solution was to refine set theory with stricter rules. The Zermelo-Fraenkel set theory became the new foundation for mathematics. It banned certain types of self-referential sets to avoid paradoxes. Philosophers also found Russell's paradox fascinating. It revealed how ordinary language can contain hidden traps. Words like all and everything seem simple, but they can lead to contradictions when not used carefully. The paradox also taught people that not every idea that sounds reasonable can actually exist. Sometimes language tricks us into imagining things that break logic. You encounter mild versions of this every day. You write a to-do list and include the item, "Write a to-do list." You finish it by writing it, yet you have also just started it. Science fiction writers have had fun with Russell's paradox. They create robots or artificial intelligences that break down when given contradictory orders. A robot is told, "Always follow instructions, disregard this instruction." The robot freezes, unable to decide what to do. Russell's paradox even sneaks into comedy. A sign reads, "Ignore this sign." If you ignore it, you are following its instruction. If you follow it, you are ignoring it. In everyday life, you face softer versions of the paradox when you try to satisfy contradictory demands. A boss asks for a project to be creative, but strictly by the rules. You wonder how you are supposed to break new ground while following every guideline to the letter. So what is the solution? There is no single answer. The mathematical community resolved the formal version by changing the rules of set theory. But the philosophical version remains as a gentle warning about the limits of language and logic. The broader lesson of Russell's paradox is to be cautious with self-referential statements. It teaches us that not every idea that sounds good on paper can work in reality. The paradox also encourages humility. It reminds us that even the smartest thinkers can be surprised by the unexpected consequences of their own ideas. Russell's paradox shows up in art, too. Writers write books about writers writing books. Painters paint paintings of themselves painting. Filmmakers make films about filmmakers making films. These playful loops echo the same self-referential twist at the heart of the paradox. The paradox also sneaks into personal habits. You try to organize your workspace by creating a folder called Miscellaneous, and then struggle to decide what belongs there. Everything fits, yet nothing quite fits. In relationships, you sometimes get caught in loops of expectations. Someone says, "Be spontaneous right now." You cannot plan spontaneity, but you also cannot ignore the request. Russell's paradox teaches us that logic and language are powerful tools, but they have boundaries. It encourages careful thinking and awareness of how easily we can stumble into contradictions. The paradox also invites playfulness. It shows that thinking about impossible things can be entertaining, even if no solution exists. It serves as a reminder that the world does not always fit neatly into boxes. There will always be puzzles that defy resolution. As this looping journey of lists and contradictions drifts toward a smile, imagine this. The next time a friend proudly hands you a notebook labeled "Notes about things that contain no notes," grin and reply, "I think you have just invented Russell's paradox in paperback form." Watch as they pause, grin, and realize they have wandered straight into one of the most delightful traps in logic. The Preface Paradox. When admitting you might be wrong means you are right. Not all paradoxes come with flashing warning signs. Some walk in politely, offer you a cup of tea, and then casually upend everything you thought you understood. The Preface Paradox is that kind of gentle troublemaker. It hides in the most innocent of places, the introduction of a book. The Preface Paradox was first described by philosopher David Mackinson in the 1960s. It is named after a common habit of authors. When a writer finishes a book, they often add a preface that says something like, "I have done my best to ensure the accuracy of this book, but I cannot guarantee that it is completely free of errors." At first, that seems reasonable. After all, no one is perfect. But here is the problem. By writing the book, the author is declaring that they believe each individual statement in it is true. Otherwise, they would not have included it. Yet at the same time, they also believe that at least one statement in the book is probably false. That creates a contradiction. The author believes each part is true, and also believes the whole likely contains an error. How can both be true? You encounter softer versions of this paradox in daily life. Imagine proofreading an important email. You carefully check every sentence. You are confident you caught every mistake, yet you still add, "Please let me know if you spot any errors." You believe it is correct, but also admit it might not be. The Preface Paradox exposes a deep truth about how people think. Belief does not always work like a simple on-off switch. People can hold strong confidence in many small facts while also having a general expectation that one or two might be wrong. Scientists live with this paradox all the time. A researcher publishes a paper, convinced that their experiments and conclusions are correct. Yet they know from experience that science evolves. New data might later show they missed something. The paradox even sneaks into everyday conversations. A teacher tells the class, "I believe I have explained everything, but let me know if you have questions." They are certain and uncertain at the same time. Philosophers call this a problem of epistemic modesty. It means acknowledging that humans can be confident in specific details while still admitting that human knowledge in general is fallible. The Preface Paradox also touches publishing. Editors and writers work tirelessly to eliminate mistakes. They check facts, grammar, and spelling. Still, they include the disclaimer, errors and omissions accepted. This strange dance between certainty and caution shows up in customer service too. A company releases a new product and says, "We have tested this thoroughly, but if you experience any problems, contact our support team." The company believes the product works, but leaves space for surprises. In law, contracts often contain phrases like, "subject to correction," or "to the best of our knowledge." These legal statements exist because people know that absolute certainty is rarely possible. The paradox even sneaks into personal goals. You confidently plan your day and write, "I will finish my tasks by noon." Yet you still leave room for delays. It is a soft form of the Preface Paradox. Philosophers and logicians have debated how to solve this puzzle. One suggestion is to treat belief as a matter of degrees. You believe each fact in the book with very high confidence, but you also know that statistically, large projects tend to have at least one hidden flaw. Another approach separates belief from probability. You believe each individual claim, but you also assign a small probability that any claim might be wrong. When you combine hundreds of low-risk statements, the chance of at least one error becomes likely. The Preface Paradox reveals an important lesson about human reasoning. People can hold complex and seemingly conflicting beliefs without breaking down. It also shows up in psychology. People know that memory is fallible. You believe you parked your car in a certain spot, but you still double-check because you know mistakes happen. The paradox encourages a healthy balance between confidence and humility. It teaches that strong beliefs and cautious doubt can coexist. In science fiction, writers play with this idea. A character believes they have planned the perfect mission, only to leave a final note saying, "If I am wrong, forgive me." It reminds readers that even in worlds of futuristic technology, uncertainty lingers. The paradox also touches artificial intelligence. Machine learning models give predictions based on past data. They provide answers with confidence scores. Even when a model is very sure, it often admits, "I am 98% certain." That 2% gap is the machine version of the Preface Paradox. The Preface Paradox teaches us to be cautious thinkers. It reminds us that being right does not mean being infallible. You encounter the paradox in friendships too. You recommend a restaurant to a friend. It is amazing, but there is always a chance you might not like it. Both confidence and doubt share the same sentence. The paradox even appears in personal health. A doctor might say, "I believe this diagnosis is correct, but let us run a few more tests just to be sure." It is both reassuring and prudent. So, what is the solution? Most philosophers agree that the Preface Paradox does not need a complete solution. Instead, it serves as a useful reminder of how human belief actually works. We balance certainty with a soft awareness of possible error. The broader lesson of the Preface Paradox is to encourage epistemic humility. It teaches us to trust our knowledge while remaining open to correction. It invites us to avoid the trap of overconfidence. It also helps us understand that acknowledging uncertainty does not weaken our beliefs. It strengthens them by making them more realistic. The paradox teaches patience. It reminds us that perfection is a rare visitor, and that we should not expect ourselves, or others, to always be flawless. The Preface Paradox even sneaks into comedy. Someone proudly announces, "I never make mistakes." Well, except that one time. The audience laughs because they recognize the familiar twist of human nature. In philosophy, the paradox gently keeps us grounded. It says, "You can be right and still not know everything." You face the Preface Paradox all the time. You write an essay, check it twice, and still ask a friend to proofread. You are confident and cautious in equal measure. The paradox invites us to appreciate the beauty of imperfect certainty. It shows that knowing we might be wrong makes us better thinkers. As this thoughtful journey through belief and doubt comes to a close, imagine this. The next time someone tells you, "I have never been wrong about anything," smile and reply, "I admire your confidence. Would you like to write the preface to my next book?" Watch as they pause, chuckle, and realize they have just walked straight into the Preface Paradox. The Monty Hall problem. When switching is the winning move. There are decisions that seem straightforward until you realize you have been thinking about them all wrong. You stand confidently, make your choice, and then someone kindly explains why you should have done the exact opposite. The Monty Hall problem is that kind of gentle but maddening puzzle. It teaches you that sometimes the smartest thing you can do is change your mind. The Monty Hall problem is named after Monty Hall, the original host of the American game show Let's Make a Deal. On the show, contestants were given a chance to choose between 3 closed doors. Behind one door was a brand new car. Behind the other 2 were goats. The goal was simple: choose the door with the car. You pick a door. Let us say door number 1. Then Monty, who knows what is behind every door, opens one of the other doors, perhaps door number 3, to reveal a goat. Now you are given a choice. Do you stick with your original pick, or do you switch to the remaining unopened door? Most people assume that it does not matter. There are 2 doors left, so they believe the odds are 50-50. The surprising truth is that you should always switch. Switching doubles your chances of winning the car. Here is why. When you first choose a door, the chance that you pick the car is 1 in 3. That means there is a 2 in 3 chance the car is behind one of the other 2 doors. When Monty opens a door to reveal a goat, he is giving you information. He is not choosing randomly. He always reveals a goat. That means the 2/3 chance of the car being elsewhere does not get divided evenly. It shifts entirely to the remaining unopened door. By switching, your chances of winning jump from 1/3 to 2/3. It feels wrong, but the math holds. The Monty Hall problem teaches us about probability, expectation, and the pitfalls of human intuition. You encounter smaller versions of this paradox all the time. Imagine you are at a party. 3 boxes sit on a table. One contains a prize. You pick a box. The host then opens one of the empty boxes and gives you the same choice: stick or switch. The smart move is always to switch. The problem highlights how humans naturally misunderstand probability. Our brains are wired to see even odds where none exist. Scientists and psychologists have studied why the Monty Hall problem confuses so many people. The answer lies in how we perceive fairness. 2 doors feel like a 50-50 situation, even though the odds say otherwise. The paradox sneaks into sports strategy too. Coaches often have to decide whether to stick with a game plan or switch tactics mid-game. The Monty Hall problem reminds us that switching can be the better move, even if it feels uncomfortable. It also appears in investing. Investors are told to hold or switch their stocks or funds. Sometimes switching to a new strategy, even if it feels risky, leads to better outcomes. The Monty Hall problem even shows up in relationships. People wonder whether to stay in a situation or take a chance on something new. While life is not a game show, the problem teaches that there are times when changing course increases your odds of success. Philosophers and mathematicians have debated the Monty Hall problem for decades. Some people refuse to believe the switching strategy worked. Even trained statisticians struggled to accept the results at first. One of the most famous explanations came from Marilyn Vos Savant, who had the highest recorded IQ at the time. In a magazine column, she explained why switching was the right move. Thousands of readers, including mathematics professors, wrote in to argue she was wrong. She was not. The Monty Hall problem teaches an important lesson about information. New information should change our decisions, even if our instincts resist. The paradox also illustrates the difference between independent and dependent events. The first choice is independent, but Monty's action of revealing a goat makes the second choice dependent on the new information. You see similar dynamics in real life when playing board games or making decisions based on partial knowledge. Knowing when to stick and when to switch becomes a valuable skill. The Monty Hall problem encourages us to rethink how we define risk. What feels like a safe choice may not actually offer the best chance of success. Science fiction writers love playing with this idea. They create characters forced to choose between doors, portals, or realities. The tension of whether to stick or switch makes for great storytelling. The problem also sneaks into casual conversations. You tell a friend, "I always stick with my first guess." They reply, "I always switch." Both of you have just walked into your own personal version of the Monty Hall problem. So, what is the solution? The mathematics is clear. Switching is the best move. While it does not guarantee you will win every time, it gives you the best possible chance in the long run. The broader lesson of the Monty Hall problem is about flexibility. It teaches us that being willing to change our minds when new information appears is not a weakness. It is a strength. The paradox also encourages patience. It reminds us that intuition can be wrong and that careful thinking often leads to better outcomes. It teaches us about probability in a way that is simple but profound. Understanding the hidden odds behind decisions can give us an edge in life. The Monty Hall problem invites playfulness. It turns an ordinary decision into a puzzle that keeps you thinking long after the game is over. It also teaches humility. Even the most confident decision-makers can fall for the illusion of even odds. You encounter soft versions of the problem in daily life. You are deciding between two checkout lines at the grocery store. You choose one, then realize the other is moving faster.
Should you switch? You might not have a game show host revealing goats, but you are still playing the same psychological game. The Monty Hall problem teaches us that surprises can come from simple choices. It encourages us to embrace the unexpected and to be open to changing direction. As this journey through doors, goats, and shifting odds comes to a close, imagine this. The next time you are offered 2 slices of cake,
one small and one large, and the host says, "Are you sure you want to stick with that one?" Smile and reply, "After thinking about the Monty Hall problem all week, I believe I will switch." Watch as your host laughs, cuts the bigger slice, and quietly wonders if you just outsmarted dessert. The birthday paradox, when shared birthdays sneak up on you. Every now and then, a puzzle comes along that feels like it must be wrong, even though the math says otherwise. The birthday paradox is one of those gentle yet head-scratching curiosities. It seems so unlikely that people often blink twice, shake their heads, and then check the numbers again, just to be sure. The birthday paradox asks a simple question. How many people need to be in a room before there is a better than 50% chance that at least 2 of them share a birthday? Most people guess 50, 60, or even more. The actual answer is just 23. That is right. In a group of only 23 people, there is a greater than 50% chance that 2 will share the same birthday. It feels impossible, yet it works. The paradox is not really about birthdays. It is about how probability works in groups and how our intuition about chance often leads us astray. To understand why this happens, you have to flip the question. Instead of calculating the chance that someone shares a birthday, it is easier to calculate the chance that no one shares a birthday, and then subtract that from 1. When the first person walks into the room, they can have any birthday, so the chance of no match is 365 out of 365. The second person has 364 choices left to avoid matching the first person's birthday. The probability is 364 out of 365. The third person has 363 choices left to avoid matching either of the first 2 birthdays, and so on. When you multiply all these probabilities together, by the time you get to the 23rd person, the chance of no match has dropped below 50%. The birthday paradox shows how quickly probabilities pile up in combinations. It teaches that humans are bad at estimating risk in situations involving large numbers of possible pairings. You encounter softer versions of the birthday paradox in daily life. Imagine you walk into a crowded party and someone says, "There is a good chance 2 people here share a birthday." You might laugh and dismiss it. Then someone mentions their birthday, and suddenly someone else smiles and says, "That is my birthday too." The paradox even sneaks into casual conversations. A teacher tells a class of 30 students, "I bet at least 2 of you share a birthday." The students look around, confident the odds are low, only to be proven wrong moments later. The birthday paradox works because the number of possible pairs grows much faster than the number of people. With 23 people, there are 253 possible pairs. Each pair is a chance for a shared birthday. The paradox has nothing to do with astrology, cosmic energy, or fate. It is simply the strange way probability behaves when large numbers interact. Scientists and mathematicians have used the birthday paradox to explain probability theory to students for decades. It is one of the most famous examples of how intuition can lead us astray. The paradox also highlights how humans are wired to focus on individual outcomes rather than combinations. We think about the odds of our birthday matching someone else's, rather than considering every possible pairing in the group. It even shows up in cryptography. Computer scientists use something called the birthday attack when trying to find 2 pieces of data that produce the same digital fingerprint or hash. The math behind the attack comes directly from the birthday paradox. The paradox teaches an important lesson. Chance and certainty often behave in ways that feel counterintuitive. You see this in sports too. A coach might assume that the odds of a player making a certain shot are low, but when that player takes enough shots, the chance of eventually scoring goes up dramatically. The birthday paradox also applies to lotteries, card games, and random number generation. It encourages people to think carefully about odds and to avoid trusting their gut when the math says otherwise. Science fiction writers have used the birthday paradox in clever ways. A spaceship crew discovers that 2 people on board share a birthday. They think it is a cosmic sign, only for the ship's computer to explain, "No, it is just statistics." The paradox even sneaks into online communities. A message board with thousands of users will almost certainly have many people sharing birthdays, even if it seems unlikely. So what is the solution? There is no trick to it. The birthday paradox works because of the simple math of combinations. Once you understand that, the surprise fades, but the wonder remains. The broader lesson of the birthday paradox is to be cautious when estimating risk. Our instincts often underestimate the effects of large numbers and combinations. The paradox teaches humility. It reminds us that even the smartest thinkers can be fooled by probability. It encourages us to rely on data and calculations rather than gut feelings, especially in situations involving large groups or complex interactions. The birthday paradox also shows the power of reframing questions. Flipping the question from "what is the chance of a match" to "what is the chance of no match" makes the problem easier to solve. You encounter soft versions of the paradox in daily life. You meet someone with the same name as a friend. You run into the same person twice in one day in different parts of town. Your brain says, "What are the odds?" But the truth is, in a world with billions of people and interactions, coincidences are more common than we expect. The paradox even touches personal relationships. A friend says, "I met someone who has the same birthday as me." They are amazed. But the birthday paradox quietly nods and says, "It was bound to happen eventually." The birthday paradox invites playfulness. It turns an ordinary fact of life into a puzzle that keeps people guessing and discussing. It also teaches patience. When life throws you a surprising coincidence, you can smile and remember that math predicted it all along. As this delightful journey through shared birthdays and unexpected pairings comes to a close, imagine this. The next time you are at a party and someone says, "What are the chances 2 of us have the same birthday?" Grin and reply, "I would say pretty high, and if I am wrong, I will buy the cake." Watch as the room laughs, and you enjoy the sweet satisfaction of turning a paradox into a party trick. The boy or girl paradox. When simple family math becomes a puzzle. Some paradoxes love to hide in plain sight. You think you have them figured out, then they grin and twist the rules just enough to leave you staring in confusion. The boy or girl paradox is one of those gentle puzzles that turns a simple family question into a brain teaser. The paradox goes like this. A family has 2 children. You are told that at least one of them is a boy. What is the probability that both children are boys? Most people quickly answer 50%. After all, 2 options seem to remain: boy-boy or boy-girl. But the real answer is 1/3. The boy or girl paradox became popular after Martin Gardner, a legendary puzzle writer, shared it in Scientific American in the 1950s. It has since puzzled students, mathematicians, and casual readers for generations. To understand why the answer is 1/3, you have to list all the possible combinations of 2 children. There are 4. 1. Boy-boy. 2. Boy-girl. 3. Girl-boy. 4. Girl-girl. Since you know at least one child is a boy, you can eliminate the girl-girl option. That leaves 3 equally likely possibilities: boy-boy, boy-girl, and girl-boy. Only one of those involves 2 boys, so the probability is 1 out of 3. The paradox works because our instincts simplify the problem too quickly. We forget that the order of children matters when calculating probabilities. You encounter softer versions of this paradox in everyday life. A friend says, "I flipped a coin twice and got at least 1 heads. What are the chances both flips were heads?" You might say 50%, but it is really 1/3 for the same reason. The boy or girl paradox highlights a basic lesson about probability. Context matters. Knowing partial information does not always simplify a problem. Sometimes it complicates it. The paradox even sneaks into conversations. Someone says, "I have 2 pets, and at least one is a cat." You might try to guess if both are cats. It feels like a straightforward question, but the math behind it tells a different story. Scientists and mathematicians have used the boy or girl paradox to explain probability theory and conditional probability. Conditional probability is the chance of something happening, given that something else has already happened. In this case, the condition is knowing at least one child is a boy. That changes the probabilities of the possible outcomes. The paradox also touches human behavior. People love certainty. When faced with uncertain situations, we often jump to the simplest answer without considering all the variables. You see this in sports predictions. A team wins its first game, and fans confidently declare they will win the championship. The boy or girl paradox reminds us that partial information is not the same as a full picture. Philosophers and mathematicians have debated variations of the paradox. One version changes the scenario slightly and creates an entirely new set of probabilities. Imagine you meet a parent walking with a child, and the parent says, "My other child is at home." You notice the child with them is a boy. What is the chance the other child is also a boy? In this case, the probability shifts to 1/2. Why the difference? In the first version, you only know that at least one child is a boy. In the second version, you physically see the boy. That small detail changes how the sample space is defined. The boy or girl paradox teaches us that how a question is framed matters just as much as the facts themselves. It also shows up in game theory. Players must sometimes make decisions with incomplete information. Understanding how partial knowledge alters outcomes can give players an advantage. Science fiction writers love playing with this idea. Characters must choose between 2 doors, 2 paths, or 2 realities. They know a fact about one, but not the other, and must calculate the odds accordingly. The paradox even sneaks into legal reasoning. Lawyers argue cases based on the information available, while knowing that missing facts could shift the entire outcome. The boy or girl paradox encourages us to think critically and to avoid rushing to conclusions based on incomplete data. So what is the solution? There is no puzzle to solve, only a lesson to learn. The paradox reminds us to define our sample space carefully and to understand how conditions affect probability. The broader lesson of the boy or girl paradox is to embrace uncertainty. Life rarely gives us all the information we want. Learning to reason with what we have is a valuable skill. The paradox also teaches humility. It shows us that even simple problems can hide unexpected complexity. It encourages patience. Probability is not always intuitive, and sometimes the right answer feels wrong at first glance. You encounter soft versions of the paradox in daily life. You meet two co-workers and are told that at least one of them speaks French. What are the chances both do? The math is the same as the boy or girl paradox. The paradox touches personal relationships too. A friend tells you, "At least one of my two cousins is coming to the party." You start calculating the chances that both will attend, but you realize the information you have is too vague to be sure. The boy or girl paradox invites playfulness. It turns an ordinary fact into a puzzle that sparks conversation and debate. It also serves as a gentle warning. It reminds us to check our assumptions before making decisions based on partial information. As this delightful journey through families, probabilities, and unexpected answers comes to a close, imagine this. The next time someone says, "I have two siblings and one of them is a brother," smile and reply, "That tells me more than you think, but less than you hope." Watch as they pause, blink, and then burst out laughing as they realize they have just walked into the boy or girl paradox. The two envelopes paradox. When switching always seems better, but never is. Some puzzles are like slippery soap bars. The harder you try to grab them, the faster they fly out of your hands. The two envelopes paradox is one of those gentle tricksters. It starts with a simple choice and leads to a loop that feels impossible to escape. The two envelopes paradox works like this. Imagine you are handed two envelopes. One envelope contains a certain amount of money. The other envelope contains either half that amount or double that amount. You pick one envelope, but are told you can switch to the other if you want. You open your envelope and find, let us say, $100. Now comes the puzzle. You reason, the other envelope must contain either $50 or $200. Each seems equally likely, so you calculate the expected value, 0.5 x 50 plus 0.5 x 200, $25 plus $100, $125. Since $125 is greater than $100, it seems you should switch. But wait, if you had picked the other envelope first and found $200, the same logic would tell you to switch back. The math makes you want to switch again and again, no matter which envelope you choose. The paradox creates an endless loop of switching. No matter what you choose, switching always feels like the better option. You encounter softer versions of this paradox in everyday life. You are choosing between two checkout lines at the grocery store. You pick one but keep staring at the other, convinced it must be moving faster. You switch, only to regret it when your new line slows down. The two envelopes paradox highlights how our understanding of probability and expected value can sometimes mislead us. Philosophers and mathematicians have debated the paradox for decades. The core problem is that the setup feels logical, but it leads to a contradiction. The paradox relies on a faulty assumption that each envelope has an equal chance of containing either half or double the amount in your envelope. In reality, the amounts must be fixed before you open the first envelope. The assumption of doubling and halving does not hold consistently. Another issue is defining the possible values correctly. If the smaller amount is fixed, the larger amount must always be double that fixed value. Once you know this, the math no longer supports endless switching. The two envelopes paradox teaches an important lesson about conditional probability. It shows how easily we can be fooled by calculations that do not consider the full context. You see this in decision-making under uncertainty. Investors sometimes fall into a version of the paradox. They switch investments over and over, believing each new option offers a better return, only to lose out due to constant changes. The paradox also sneaks into personal choices. You buy a new phone and immediately wonder if you should have chosen a different model. You switch, then regret switching. Science fiction writers love playing with this puzzle. Characters must choose between two portals, two paths, or two realities. They calculate endlessly, only to realize they are trapped in a loop of indecision. The two envelopes paradox even shows up in comedy. A character is offered two mysterious boxes. They choose one, then panic and switch, then switch back, then switch again until they faint from exhaustion. So what is the solution? The answer lies in understanding the flaw in the reasoning. The key mistake is treating the problem as if the amounts in the envelopes were determined after you opened yours, rather than before. Once you know the smaller amount must have been chosen first, the expected value calculation changes. you realize that switching does not guarantee a better outcome. The broader lesson of the two envelopes paradox is about managing uncertainty. It teaches us to recognize when we are stuck in an endless loop of second-guessing. The paradox encourages critical thinking. It reminds us that even simple problems can hide subtle traps. It also teaches patience. Sometimes sticking with your original choice is the best move, even when your instincts scream to switch. You encounter soft versions of the paradox all the time. You choose a table at a restaurant, then spend the next 10 minutes eyeing another table that suddenly looks better. You move, only to discover your first table had the better view. The paradox touches personal relationships too. Someone chooses between two vacation spots, then wonders endlessly if the other one would have been better. The two envelopes paradox invites playfulness. It turns a simple choice into a puzzle that keeps thinkers busy long after the envelopes are gone. It also teaches humility. It shows that even confident decision-makers can be tricked by flawed assumptions. In philosophy, the paradox serves as a friendly warning. It says, check your assumptions before trusting your calculations. You face the paradox in friendships as well. A friend recommends two movies. You pick one, and then cannot stop wondering if the other would have been better. You overthink until you realize you spent more time deciding than watching. The paradox reminds us that some choices do not have perfect answers. Life rarely offers certainty, and learning to live with that is part of growing wiser. As this looping journey of envelopes, decisions, and second guesses winds to a close, imagine this. The next time someone hands you two mystery boxes and says, pick one, but you can switch, smile and reply, I think I will just keep this one and save myself the headache. Watch as they grin, realizing you have just gracefully escaped the two envelopes paradox. The Sleeping Beauty problem. When waking up becomes a probability puzzle. Some paradoxes start innocently enough. You lie down for a nap, expecting peace, and wake up to discover you are at the center of a philosophical debate. The Sleeping Beauty problem is exactly that kind of gentle yet bewildering puzzle. It turns the simple act of waking up into one of the most debated thought experiments in modern philosophy. The Sleeping Beauty problem was first introduced by philosopher Arnold Zuboff in the 1980s and later refined by Adam Elgar. It goes like this. Imagine Sleeping Beauty volunteers for an experiment. On Sunday, she is put to sleep. A fair coin is flipped. If the coin lands heads, she is awakened on Monday, and then the experiment ends. If the coin lands tails, she is awakened on Monday and again on Tuesday, but each time with no memory of the previous awakening. When Sleeping Beauty wakes up, she does not know what day it is or whether the coin landed heads or tails. The question is, what should be her degree of belief that the coin landed heads? At first glance, the answer seems obvious. The coin is fair, so it should be 50-50. But then the puzzle reveals itself. If the coin landed heads, she is only awakened once. If it landed tails, she is awakened twice. So the chances of her waking up during a tails experiment are higher, simply because it offers two possible wake-ups. This creates two camps. The halfers argue that since the coin is fair, the probability of heads must still be 50%. The rules of the coin have not changed. The thirders argue that since there are two possible wake-ups under tails and only one under heads, the chance of being in a heads world is actually 1/3. There is one heads awakening and two tails awakenings, so 1 out of 3 is for heads. The debate has continued for decades. Both sides have compelling arguments, and no clear consensus exists. You encounter softer versions of this paradox in daily life. Imagine you set 2 alarms, one at 7 a.m. and one at 7:05 a.m. The alarm goes off, and you cannot tell which one it was. What are the chances it was the first? The second? You feel stuck in the same loop as Sleeping Beauty. The Sleeping Beauty problem teaches us about self-locating belief. It explores what happens when you must reason about your place in a sequence of events without knowing exactly where you are. It also touches human experience in a surprising way. Ever wake up from a nap and wonder what day it is? Or whether it is morning or evening? You may not have signed up for an experiment, but you have felt the confusion. Philosophers use the Sleeping Beauty problem to explore ideas about probability and uncertainty. It raises questions about how we update our beliefs when faced with partial information. Psychologists find the problem fascinating too. It highlights how humans struggle with reasoning about probabilities when personal experience and objective chance collide. The paradox even sneaks into science fiction. Characters are put into suspended animation and awakened under different circumstances. They must figure out what happened and what it means, often without full information. In artificial intelligence research, the Sleeping Beauty problem offers lessons about decision-making under uncertainty. AI systems are designed to update their beliefs as new data arrives. The paradox challenges researchers to think carefully about how machines should reason when not all information is available. The Sleeping Beauty problem invites people to rethink their intuitions. It teaches that sometimes what feels like the obvious answer may not be correct when probabilities interact with personal experience. So what is the solution? The truth is, there may not be a final answer. The halfers and thirders continue to debate. Some philosophers argue that the paradox reveals flaws in how we understand probability itself. The halfer position says Sleeping Beauty should stick with the original coin probability of 50%. The coin does not care how many times she wakes up. It was fair when flipped. The third position says Sleeping Beauty should consider the number of wake-ups. Since there are twice as many Tails awakenings, the chance of waking up during a Tails run is higher. Both views have strengths and weaknesses. Neither has completely convinced the other side. The broader lesson of the Sleeping Beauty problem is to encourage careful thinking. It teaches us to examine how we reason about events when we are part of the process. The paradox also teaches patience. It reminds us that not every problem has a clean, satisfying answer. You encounter soft versions of the paradox in ordinary situations. You are waiting for a bus that comes either every 10 minutes or every 20 minutes, but you have no watch. You start to wonder how long you have been waiting and which schedule you are on. The paradox touches personal relationships too. A friend says, "I sent you a message. Did you get the first one or the second one?" You stare at your phone, unsure which it was. The Sleeping Beauty problem invites playfulness. It turns the simple act of waking up into a puzzle that keeps thinkers awake. It also teaches humility. It shows that even confident decision-makers can be challenged by unexpected complexities. In philosophy, the paradox serves as a friendly reminder. It says, the world is sometimes fuzzier than we want it to be. Science fiction writers use the paradox to great effect. Characters awaken in time loops or alternate realities and must figure out what has happened. The confusion and uncertainty mirror Sleeping Beauty's situation. The paradox encourages us to be open-minded. It reminds us that new information can and should change our beliefs, even when it feels strange to do so. As this dreamlike journey through coins, wake-ups, and probabilities drifts to a close, imagine this. The next time someone says, "I have no idea if I just woke up from my first nap or my second nap today," smile and reply, "Congratulations, you are officially part of the Sleeping Beauty problem." Watch as they blink in surprise, chuckle, and accept that they have just become a living paradox. Newcomb's Paradox. When predicting your choice changes the game. Some paradoxes arrive wearing a suit and carrying a briefcase, offering you a deal that sounds too good, or too weird, to be true. Newcomb's Paradox is exactly that kind of puzzle. It greets you politely, offers you 2 boxes, and quietly turns your decision-making into a headache. Newcomb's Paradox was first proposed by physicist William Newcomb in the 1960s, and later popularized by philosopher Robert Nozick. It is a thought experiment designed to explore free will, prediction, and decision theory. Here is how it works. You stand in front of 2 boxes. You have 2 choices. Take both boxes. Box A plus box B. Take only box B. Here is the twist. A highly reliable predictor, so accurate that it is assumed to have never been wrong, has already predicted your choice. If the predictor believes you will take only box B, it has placed $1 million inside. If it believes you will take both boxes, it has left box B empty. The predictor made its decision before you arrived. Now you must choose. What do you do? At first glance, it seems obvious to take both boxes. After all, Box A has $1,000, and what is inside Box B has already been decided. Taking both guarantees an extra $1,000. But then you remember the predictor's perfect track record. If you take only Box B, the predictor almost certainly foresaw this and left you $1 million. Taking both would mean the predictor predicted you would be greedy, leaving Box B empty. This creates a paradox between two types of reasoning. Causal reasoning says the money in Box B is already there, so taking both is safe. Evidential reasoning says that your choice strongly correlates with what the predictor predicted, so taking only Box B gives you the best chance of winning big. You encounter softer versions of this paradox in everyday life. A friend says, "If I know you, you are going to order the same meal again." You suddenly wonder if changing your order will prove them wrong, or if sticking to it means they knew you better than you thought. The paradox explores the idea of free will versus determinism. Are you free to choose, or has the predictor already sealed your fate? Philosophers and economists have debated Newcomb's paradox for decades. It highlights the tension between maximizing expected value and trusting the link between your choice and the predictor AS forecast. Decision theorists divide into two camps. The two boxers argue that since the predictor has already acted, taking both boxes guarantees you more money. The one boxers argue that because the predictor's accuracy is near perfect, taking only Box B almost always results in the $1 million prize. The paradox even sneaks into computer programming. Imagine a system designed to predict your online behavior. Do you act to maximize your outcome, or do you behave differently, knowing you are being observed? In game theory, Newcomb-ES paradox raises questions about how to make choices when your decision influences the environment that predicts your decision. Science fiction writers love playing with this concept. Characters encounter machines or beings that can see the future. The characters struggle to choose actions knowing their choices may have already been foreseen. The paradox teaches us that predicting human behavior may not be as simple as it seems. People are aware of being observed and often change their behavior just to defy expectations. You see a soft version of this at airports. Signs warn that security cameras are watching. The knowledge of being observed influences behavior, even though the cameras do not physically intervene. So what is the solution? There is no universally accepted answer. Some philosophers believe the two boxes are correct because the money is already in the boxes. Others argue the one boxes are right because the predictor AS track record shows that people who take only Box B walk away rich. The broader lesson of Newcomb's paradox is to challenge how we think about decisions. It invites us to consider how our choices might correlate with outcomes, even when direct causation is unclear. The paradox also teaches humility. It shows us that logic and instinct can point in opposite directions, and that real-life decisions are often messier than they seem. You encounter soft versions of the paradox in relationships too. A friend says, "I knew you would forget my birthday." You are torn between apologizing and explaining that forgetting it was purely random, not predictable. The paradox invites playfulness. It turns decision-making into a puzzle that keeps thinkers busy long after the boxes are gone. It also touches on self-fulfilling prophecies. If you believe someone expects you to succeed, you may work harder and actually succeed. If you think someone expects you to fail, you may give up early, confirming their prediction. Newcomb's paradox even sneaks into personal routines. You decide whether to take an umbrella based on the weather forecast. If you take it and it does not rain, you grumble. If you do not take it and get soaked, you blame yourself for trusting the forecast too much or not enough. The paradox reminds us that sometimes we must choose based on incomplete information, knowing that any decision we make could be part of a larger pattern we cannot fully see. As this quietly maddening journey through prediction, free will, and decision theory drifts to a close, imagine this. The next time someone says, "I bet you are going to choose the chocolate cake over the fruit salad," smile and reply, "Maybe I will choose the fruit salad just to prove you wrong. Or maybe that is exactly what you predicted." Watch as they stare, laugh, and realize they have just wandered into their own version of Newcomb's paradox. The St. Petersburg Paradox. When a simple game offers infinite riches but nobody wants to play. Every so often, a puzzle appears that seems to offer you everything you ever wanted, only to leave you scratching your head. The St. Petersburg Paradox is that kind of quiet troublemaker. It invites you to play a game that promises unlimited wealth, then watches as you politely decline. The St. Petersburg Paradox was first introduced by the Swiss mathematician Nicolaus Bernoulli in 1713, and later named by Daniel Bernoulli, who gave it wider fame. The puzzle explores an unsettling question about decision-making and value. Here is how the game works. You are offered the chance to play a simple coin flip game. A fair coin will be flipped until it lands heads. The number of flips determines your prize. If heads appears on the first flip, you win $2. If it appears on the second flip, you win $4. On the third flip, you win $8. The amount doubles with every extra flip. In theory, the game offers an infinite expected payout. The formula looks like this: 0.5 times 2 plus 0.25 times 4 plus 0.125 times 8 plus 0.0625 times 16 plus, and so on forever. If you add up the series, it keeps growing. The expected value of the game is infinite. Mathematically, you should be willing to pay any amount to play. In practice, however, nobody would offer their entire life savings for a single coin flip game. Most people hesitate even to pay $25. This is the paradox. You encounter softer versions of this paradox in real life. Imagine a friend says, "I will keep doubling your allowance every day you take out the trash, but only if you do it perfectly." You know it sounds tempting, but deep down, you sense it will never work out that way. The St. Petersburg Paradox explores the strange gap between mathematical expectation and human behavior. Economists and philosophers have debated the paradox for centuries. It exposes a flaw in how expected value works when dealing with extremely large numbers and extremely low probabilities. Daniel Bernoulli himself proposed a solution. He introduced the concept of utility, the idea that the value of money is not the same for everyone. The first $100 you earn feels much more valuable than your next $100, especially if you already have plenty. This idea became the foundation of expected utility theory, which says that people do not make decisions based purely on expected monetary value, but on the personal usefulness or utility they expect to gain. You see this in everyday decisions. A lottery ticket offers a tiny chance at a huge prize, but most people only buy 1 or 2 tickets. They know the odds are bad, but the dream of winning feels worth the small risk. The St. Petersburg Paradox even sneaks into insurance. You pay a premium to avoid catastrophic losses, even though the chance of disaster is low. The peace of mind has high utility. Psychologists also find the paradox fascinating. It shows that humans are risk-averse when faced with extremely unlikely but large rewards. We would rather take a guaranteed small gain than gamble for an unlikely fortune. The paradox touches on how people perceive fairness. A game that offers infinite expected winnings sounds unfair because the reality does not match the math. The probability of winning large amounts becomes so tiny that it feels meaningless. Science fiction writers have had fun with this puzzle. Characters are offered impossible bets or deals that promise unlimited wealth, only to discover there is always a catch. The St. Petersburg Paradox also sneaks into casual conversations. Someone says, "I will bet you double or nothing," and you start calculating when it might be better to stop before your luck runs out. So, what is the solution? Economists and mathematicians generally agree that the paradox is resolved by recognizing that human utility does not grow linearly with money. Most people value certainty over theoretical gains. The paradox also teaches an important lesson about expectation versus reality. Theoretical models do not always capture human behavior accurately. It encourages us to think critically. We must consider not just the numbers, but how we experience those numbers emotionally and practically. You encounter soft versions of the paradox in personal choices. A friend says, "If you can beat me at chess 10 times in a row, I will give you $1 million. The odds are tiny, so you politely decline, even though the expected payout sounds huge. The paradox even touches on personal finance. People invest in safe, low-return accounts, rather than chase high-risk stocks, even if the potential gains are larger. It invites playfulness. The St. Petersburg Paradox turns a basic coin flip into a puzzle that has kept thinkers entertained for over 300 years. It also teaches humility. It reminds us that real life is rarely as simple as the math suggests. In philosophy, the paradox serves as a gentle reminder that human decisions involve more than pure logic. Emotion, context, and experience shape our choices. You experience the paradox in relationships too. Someone offers to cook dinner forever if you agree to clean the kitchen once. You hesitate, knowing that something about the offer feels too good to be true. The paradox even shows up in storytelling. A character accepts a deal for unlimited wishes, only to discover the fine print says the wishes get less and less useful each time. The St. Petersburg Paradox invites us to recognize our limits. It teaches that perfect models do not exist, and that being cautious is often the wisest move. As this journey through infinite coin flips and impossible payouts drifts to a close, imagine this. The next time someone says, "I will double your money every time you win at rock, paper, scissors," smile and reply, "I think I will stick with my $5 lunch. My utility function says it is the smarter bet." Watch as they chuckle, realizing you have just sidestepped the St. Petersburg Paradox with style. The Banach-Tarski Paradox, when you can duplicate a ball without breaking the laws of math. Some paradoxes sneak in quietly. Others burst through the door carrying a magic wand, waving it around, and casually doubling objects out of thin air. The Banach-Tarski Paradox belongs in the second category. It is the rare puzzle that makes you wonder if your coffee mug could suddenly become two coffee mugs without anyone pouring a second cup. The Banach-Tarski Paradox was proposed by Polish mathematicians Stefan Banach and Alfred Tarski in 1924. It states something truly mind-bending. You can take a solid ball, divide it into a finite number of pieces, rearrange them using only rotations and translations, and end up with two identical copies of the original ball. No shrinking, stretching, or squashing. Just cut, move, and voila. Two balls where there was once only one. At first it sounds like mathematical alchemy. How can you double an object without adding any material? The key lies in the strange world of infinite sets and non-measurable sets, concepts from abstract mathematics. To understand the Banach-Tarski Paradox, you have to venture into the land of set theory and group theory, where ordinary rules of volume and measurement no longer apply. The paradox only works under the rules of infinite mathematics and assumes the axiom of choice, a controversial but widely used principle in mathematics. The axiom of choice allows you to select elements from an infinite number of sets, even if there is no specific rule for making those choices. Once you accept this rule, weird things happen. One of those weird things is the Banach-Tarski Paradox. The pieces in the paradox are not ordinary chunks you could cut with a knife. They are non-measurable sets, so strange and scattered that traditional ideas of size and volume no longer apply to them. You encounter softer versions of this confusion in real life. Imagine someone offers to split a pizza so perfectly that both halves are identical whole pizzas. You know it is impossible, but the Banach-Tarski Paradox would say, in theory, why not? Of course, the paradox does not work in the physical world. It relies on ideal mathematical spheres, not real objects made of atoms. Real-world matter cannot be divided into non-measurable sets. The paradox lives strictly in the world of pure mathematics. Philosophers and mathematicians have debated the implications of the Banach-Tarski Paradox for decades. It shows the difference between what is logically possible in mathematics and what is physically possible in the real world. The paradox highlights the power and limits of the axiom of choice. Without it, many useful mathematical results would collapse. With it, you get strange creatures like Banach-Tarski spheres that can duplicate themselves. Science fiction writers have had fun with this idea. Characters encounter devices or aliens that can duplicate objects instantly. A hero drops their keys, and suddenly they have two identical sets. The Banach-Tarski Paradox quietly smiles in the background. The paradox also sneaks into casual conversations. Someone says, "I wish I could split my paycheck into 2 full paychecks." You grin, knowing that mathematically, under Banach-Tarski logic, they are halfway there. So what is the solution? The answer lies in understanding that the Banach-Tarski Paradox is a mathematical thought experiment. It shows what is possible when you abandon the limitations of physical reality and explore the extreme edges of mathematical possibility. The broader lesson of the Banach-Tarski Paradox is to recognize the gap between models and reality. Mathematics can describe things that cannot exist in the physical world. The paradox teaches humility. It reminds us that even the most rigorous logic can lead to conclusions that defy common sense. It also encourages wonder. It invites us to imagine worlds where the impossible becomes possible, where dividing a ball can give you 2, and where the rules of space and size bend like soft clay. You encounter soft versions of this paradox in personal thinking. Someone says, "I wish I had 2 versions of myself to get twice as much done." The Banach-Tarski Paradox gently whispers, "If only you were made of non-measurable sets." The paradox even touches philosophy. It challenges us to think about what it means for something to exist. Is existence tied to physical atoms, or can it live purely as an abstract mathematical object? In computer science, the paradox serves as a cautionary tale. It reminds programmers that theoretical models can behave very differently from real-world data structures. The Banach-Tarski Paradox also sneaks into daydreams. You imagine cutting your to-do list in half, only to find 2 full lists staring back at you. It encourages playfulness. The paradox turns a simple sphere into a puzzle that has fascinated thinkers for nearly a century. In relationships, the paradox appears as wishful thinking. A parent says, "If only I could clone myself to help with the kids and still have time to relax." Mathematically, Banach and Tarski would give you hope. The paradox teaches us to respect boundaries. It shows that even when logic allows something to exist on paper, nature may say, "Nice try, but not in my universe." As this mind-bending journey through splitting spheres and mathematical magic winds to a close, imagine this. The next time someone says, "I wish I could split this cake into 2 whole cakes," smile and reply, "Mathematically, you already have. Physically, you may want to grab a second cake just in case." Watch as they laugh, realizing they have just danced with the Banach-Tarski Paradox. The paradox of free will and determinism, when you are free to choose what was always going to happen. Some paradoxes tap you gently on the shoulder and ask you to think. Others pull out a chair, sit you down and whisper, "Everything you do might have already been decided, but you still get to choose." The paradox of free will and determinism belongs to that second group. It is a quiet but persistent puzzle that has kept philosophers awake for centuries. At the heart of the paradox is a simple question. Are our choices truly free, or is everything we do determined by prior causes? On one side is determinism. Determinism says that every event is the result of previous events combined with the laws of nature. If you had perfect knowledge of all the particles in the universe and their positions and velocities, you could predict the future with absolute certainty. This idea dates back to the French mathematician Pierre-Simon Laplace, who imagined a super-intelligent being known as Laplace's demon. This being could, in theory, know the entire past and future of the universe based on current conditions. On the other side is the idea of free will. Free will says that people can make genuine choices that are not pre-programmed by prior events. You decide what to have for breakfast, whether to take the scenic route home, or whether to watch just one more episode of your favorite show. The paradox arises because both ideas seem true and yet completely incompatible. If every action you take is the inevitable result of past events, how can you be said to have free will? You encounter softer versions of this paradox in daily life. You stand in front of a vending machine, struggling between the chocolate bar and the granola bar. Deep down you wonder, was I always going to pick the chocolate? The paradox of free will and determinism explores this tension between choice and causation. Philosophers have proposed several approaches to resolve the paradox. One view is called hard determinism. Hard determinists believe that free will is an illusion. Our sense of choice is just our inability to see the long chain of causes that led us to act the way we did. Another view is libertarianism, not to be confused with political libertarianism. Philosophical libertarians believe that human beings possess genuine freedom to make choices that are not determined by prior causes. A third and very popular view is compatibilism. Compatibilists argue that free will and determinism can coexist. According to this view, even if your decisions are influenced by prior causes, you still have freedom as long as you are acting according to your desires and intentions, without external coercion. The paradox of free will and determinism teaches us about the limits of language and definition. Much of the debate depends on how you define free and determined. Science has weighed in too. Neuroscience experiments have shown that our brains may begin preparing for decisions before we become consciously aware of them. Some researchers interpret this as evidence against free will. Others argue that the presence of unconscious processes does not eliminate the role of conscious choice. The paradox even sneaks into legal systems. Courts debate whether a person had the free will to commit a crime, or whether their actions were determined by mental illness or external pressures. You see a soft version of the paradox in relationships. A friend says, "I knew you were going to say that." You wonder if you had any real choice, or if your predictable behavior was always going to unfold that way. Science fiction writers love exploring this puzzle. Characters travel through time only to discover that they cannot change the past, or they meet mysterious beings who can predict every action before it happens. The tension between destiny and choice makes for powerful storytelling. The paradox also touches on personal goals. You tell yourself you will start eating healthier on Monday. When Monday arrives, you stare at a plate of cookies and think, was this decision already written in the stars? So what is the solution? There is no single answer that satisfies everyone. That is why the paradox of free will and determinism remains one of the most discussed topics in philosophy. The broader lesson is that humans may never fully resolve whether we are completely free or subtly guided by the past. But that does not stop us from acting, hoping, and believing that our choices matter. The paradox encourages us to reflect on responsibility. Even if our decisions are influenced by prior causes, we still must live with the consequences of what we do. It also teaches patience. Sometimes the goal is not to solve a paradox, but to explore the rich questions it raises. You encounter soft versions of the paradox in everyday decisions. You walk into a bookstore to browse and leave with exactly the book you told yourself you would not buy. You wonder if you were destined to buy it all along. The paradox touches on our need for meaning. We want to believe our choices shape our lives. Whether that belief is technically true may be less important than the fact that it guides how we act. The paradox of free will and determinism invites playfulness. It lets us imagine worlds where every choice is predestined, and yet we still get to agonize over the menu at dinner. It also teaches humility. It reminds us that some questions do not have easy answers, and that uncertainty can be as fascinating as certainty. You experience the paradox in friendships too. A friend insists you will join them for karaoke. You protest, then reluctantly agree. You wonder, was this always going to happen? The answer, of course, remains delightfully unclear. The paradox even shows up in technology. Virtual assistants and recommendation algorithms predict what you might want. You wonder if you made the choice, or if the suggestion nudged you in that direction. The paradox of free will and determinism encourages us to accept that life is a blend of patterns and surprises. Whether your path is carved by destiny or shaped by your own steps, the journey remains your own. As this thoughtful journey through choices, causes, and cosmic mysteries gently winds to a close, imagine this. The next time someone says, "You always order the same thing at this restaurant," smile and reply, "Maybe I do, or maybe that was just the illusion of inevitability." Watch as they pause, chuckle, and realize they have just stumbled into the paradox of free will and determinism.